Hi, I'm Katie, and this is Fae and Fables, a podcast hosted by mental health counselors who take a psych deep dive into your favorite fantasy and romantasy books. Today, we are going to be going over The Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This is book 2 of the Shepherd King duology. And as I mentioned in our last episode, Yarlin's having to take a break from recording episodes through to the end of the year. So I have called in my very good friend and licensed mental health counselor, Becky. She has kindly agreed to return for another episode of Fae and Fables. And additionally, 2 more episodes. One, which is Quicksilver, out on December 17th. And then the second book in that series, which just came out, Brimstone, which we'll be publishing on December 31st. And I just want to say, Becky, thank you so much for coming back. I had such a great time in our last convo, and I can't wait.
I have been highly looking forward to this moment. It has been the light at the end of the tunnel of a week for me, so happy to be here. If everyone liked our last episode, you're welcome for coming back. And if you didn't, get over it, too bad.
What did you call it? You before we started recording, you called your week, what was it? Chaotic buffoonery?
Yes. Yes. So,
well,
that might continue tonight. Who knows?
Who knows? Honestly, I'm okay if you bring that energy here. The chaotic buffoonery continues. But before we get to the chaotic buffoonery, we do have to do our disclaimers, content warnings, all that good stuff. So first, please note, this episode contains spoilers for both books in the Shepherd King duology by Rachel Gillig. This includes One Dark Window, which we went over in our last episode, and Two Twisted Crowns. Additionally, several potentially triggering, emotional, and or traumatic themes may be discussed, which could be impactful or upsetting. Adult language and themes are used in the discussions of this book, so please take care of yourself and use caution if you're not in a space to engage with these conversations. It should also be mentioned that while this podcast is hosted by licensed mental health counselors, it should not be used to diagnose, treat, or address any individual mental health concerns or conditions. The knowledge, opinions, and experiences that we express related to mental health are our own, and they should not be applied for treatment. This is just for fun. If you feel like you need mental health treatment, please seek out your own individualized mental health care. As with our last episode, we are going to go through our series of events, including our rankings and our ratings, where we talk about our stars and our chili peppers, our plots and thoughts analysis, our therapy deep dive and our tee-hee moments. And then, because this is a duology, we don't have any future thoughts and theories for this one, but we do have some final reminders and a social media shout out. So, Becky, all of that said, are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Oh, good. Chaotic buffoonery ignited. So first and foremost, what did you give it for stars and chili pepper ratings?
So for stars, this book definitely is a 5-star book for me. When I read the first book, I was like, oh, this is a 5-star book. And then read the second one, and I was like, is there a 6-star option? This book is so great. Like, just the way that things twist and weave, and it was just, get it, Twisted Crowns. I did that on purpose.
You're like, notice the callback to the title there.
Yeah, you're welcome. So yes, wonderful. For chili peppers, this was tricky for me because I also was like zooming out compared to the first book, definitely spicier. However, compared to books in general, like, I don't know if you've read Lights Out, but like that is like that's a spicy book. So yes. I gave it a 2, even though it was definitely spicier than the first book.
Oh, I had the same exact struggle with chili peppers because I am out here reading Lights Out. I'm out here. We were just talking about Katie Robert, some very spicy things. So if I think about those books, chili peps really struggle, but I agree it's an amp up from the first book. So I gave it 5 stars. For the many of the same reasons that I gave 5 stars to the first book, the magic system, the feeling of it, the characters. I feel like Two Twisted Crowns got even sort of like darker and twistier than the first one. So I feel like it ramped up in a way that kept it interesting while still keeping the sort of spirit of the book and keeping with the tone of the magic and the characters. But it was something new, and it got even sort of like darker and weirder, which I liked. And then I gave 2.5 chili peppers. One of the things I really liked about Ione and Elm's love story was how immediately into each other they were. Like there was no, like, they saw each other as soon as they were standing near each other, they were like thinking things about each other. Now they didn't act on it right at first, but like I read so many of these books that I feel like there's this trope where you start a book and it's like enemies to lovers and they hate each other and they can't stand to be around each other for so long. And don't get me wrong, we love an enemies to lovers plotline, but when you've read 50 of them, it's nice to get a little switch up where they're not friends, right? Like they're not best friends. They don't necessarily like jump into each other's arms, but there's immediate chemistry between them. And it's not sort of like denied or swept under the rug. Like Elm stands near Ione. He's like, I wonder what it'd be like to put my lips on her collarbone. And then he's like, whoa, whoa.
Yes. And he's like, are you blushing? Is that what I'm seeing? Like, I think that was, I thought you're not supposed to feel anything. Like,
I thought you're supposed to not have any emotions. I also loved when they're like getting hot and heavy in the like secret nights of the round table room. And she like grabs his wrist and puts it on her chest. Like she's takes control. No. Yeah. And that, I thought that was a nice shift away from like usually the like timid or like, I don't know what I'm doing or what's happening. I feel a tingling in my core, but what is it?
She's like, get it.
She's like, I feel desire. I'll tell you that. And I do want to feel it with you. And so this definitely was an elevation in the chili pepper department, which I really appreciated. And could we write some fanfics about potential other scenarios and scenes that we could see in this book? I think so. We there's a lot of spiciness I could imagine coming out of this plotline. Yeah,
I agree.
So I'm glad we're simpatico on our stars and our chili peps, and that leads us to our plots and thoughts. Are you ready for it?
I am ready, and I love the way that you separated it out too. Okay, very, very thorough.
Thank you so much. That gets my like little studious heart going. Yes. So as Becky alluded to just a moment ago, I had decided when I created the outline for this book to separate the plot points by point of view, because I think it gets really confusing to try to create an outline for a book when you're switching POVs all the time. It's like, and then there was Elspeth, and then there was Elm, and then there was, I just didn't want to get into that. So we're going to first go over Elspeth's perspective through to a certain point in the book where she meshes with other characters. Then we're going to go to Elm and Ione until they mesh with certain characters. And then we are going to end with the point of view of Ravyn and the nightmare. And you'll see in a second why, but eventually Elspeth kind of enters the fray in their story. But we start this book with Elspeth. And Elspeth, if you remember from the end of the first book, was being tortured by Hoth. Things were very bad. And she, in desperation, calls on the nightmare one more time to take over. And the nightmare's kind of like, you know what this means? Like, your degeneration will be complete. Like, I will be the captain now. And she goes, be that as it may, I'm going to die if you don't get in here. And so the nightmare takes over, and you leave off on book one. Nightmare is now in control. And in the start of this book, Elspeth finds herself in a dark, watery nowhere. She doesn't know anything. She doesn't know her name, but she latches onto the phrase, let me out. So even from the beginning, she gets a sense that she's kind of caged somewhere and that she can't be in that place anymore, that she needs to be somewhere else. And she says it over and over again, kind of in her head, let me out, let me out, let me out. And all of a sudden, a man in golden armor, who we know to be the Shepherd King, but she doesn't know this, pulls her out of the salty water, out of this black nothingness, and onto a black sand beach. And he's been waiting for her. He's been saying to other people on the outside that he's protecting her. But now that she's kind of on this sand beach, he's pulling her out of the deepest corners of their kind of collective consciousness. Elspeth is trying to remember things while she's on this black sand beach, while she's in this black nowhere, but it is really tough. She's working really hard and it's not really coming together. But she learns the Shepherd King's real name. She gets his name down, and it's Amory Percival Taxis. And he goes by Taxis. In his lifetime, he's known as Taxis. I will tell you right now, this starts a mega confusing back and forth about what we call this man. There are so many names for this man. Sometimes he's the Shepherd King. Sometimes he's Taxis. Sometimes he's the Nightmare. It's and you're sort of bouncing between all of it all of the time. So recognize that usually when I use one of his names, it's because that's the way the person who's perceiving him is seeing him. That's kind of the role he's embodying. But any three of those names, we're talking about the same person. Taxis, Nightmare, Percival, Amory, Percival Taxis, or the Shepherd King. So she learns his name and she keeps like focusing. I picture her just like sitting on a black sand beach, just like closing her eyes, being like, come on,
yes,
please. And her memories do start coming back, first of her childhood and then her later years. And I don't know about you, but I was waiting for the memories of Ravyn to come back. She's like, somebody's out there looking for me.
Yeah, who's that guy?
Who's that cute guy with the raveny look named surprise Ravyn? And once his name kind of clicks into place, she starts getting a full picture of who Ravyn is to her. And I think as she figures things out, she gets more and more adamant about being let out, that she doesn't want to be in this prison while all this stuff is happening to people she cares about. In addition to remembering her own memories, she also starts to meet people from the Shepherd King's life. And what you discover is that the Black Sand Beach is something that the Shepherd King had created in his own mind as like a collection of his memories, or a place where his memories could kind of flourish. And she meets the ghosts of the Shepherd King's memories. Specifically his children, including his youngest named Tilly and his oldest son Bennett, who has gray eyes and dark hair.
How interesting about that.
How interesting that little tidbit is, and it becomes later. I don't know, because presumably if you're listening to this, you've read the whole thing, so you know Bennett's connections to some of our other characters. How quickly did you figure that out when you read it?
So not as quick as I'm like going through the book. I'm like, you missed that one. You kind of pretty much missed that. And so there was definitely pieces where I could tell that they were alluding to like, there's this familiarity, but I didn't make like the direct connection nearly as fast as I feel like my intelligent brain should have.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I don't, because I had read Two Twisted Crowns a while ago, so I couldn't quite remember when I caught on what Bennett's connection in all of this was, but it was far after I picked up on hints this time. Like I did the same thing where I was like, oh, you missed that one the first time, and you missed that one the first time. It
like
took
literally
me
on page 10, there's like a huge hint that I can't remember exactly what she said, but Tilly had said something, his daughter, where Bennett is often somewhere else. He did not die here, not like the rest of us. And so as you learn who Bennett is, it's like, oh yeah, because of this thing, right? And so I was like, we're dropping hints right from the jump.
Which I love to see. I love when an author bamboozles me. Like, I love when I can look back and go, oh my God, I should have figured this out way sooner. And it
Yes.
also aggravates me when an author leaves no clues and then gets to a bombastic ending. And I'm like, well, of course it feels surprising because you never gave me any indication that it was anything other, that this would even remotely happen.
Yes. And this breadcrumb trail was so well written.
I totally agree. So, various memories are coming up of the Shepherd King's children, and the main theme of their visits has to do with they keep trying to hang out with Taxus, the Shepherd King, and he keeps refusing them. So, from the very beginning, you see that in his sort of mortal life, somewhere along the way, he kind of got lost in the sauce, that his kids were trying to hang out with him, people were trying to be with him and love on him and all of that good stuff, and his head was somewhere else. And at this point we don't know totally where that somewhere else is, but we have some good guesses. But this keys her into the fact that she's in a mindscape of Taxus making. And she's really trying to find her way out, but it is not working. She keeps getting caught in these memories. And it gets to a point where he's calling for her, but she can't figure out where he is and she can't get out. We learn, in addition to some stuff about his kids, that Taxus was crowned as a king at 17 years old, and that he has a sister named Eris. That will become important later, but it sets up, I think, the scene for Taxus's life and circumstances when he starts to morph into the Shepherd King and all these cards start emerging. Eventually, Elspeth slips away totally. She goes back into this darkness, and I got the feeling like she was sort of getting closer and closer to actually disappearing or dying in some way.
Yes.
And Taxus is really worried. There's a point in his, even outwardly he's doing other things with Ravyn and other people, but he's like in his head going like, Elspeth, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And I thought it was so cool that what ends up calling her back in the end was a rhyme. It was one of those sort of sing-songy rhymes that the Shepherd King is so good at coming up with. And when he finally finds her and pulls her out of the darkness, he hugs her, and she says he hugs her like a father would. And I think this scares him enough that he goes, okay, we need to, you've been here long enough. And he says, do you want to go back to the part of our collective mind where you can see what's going on with your body and on the outside world? But know that, much like I was trapped, you will be trapped in my mind. You won't have agency. You'll be watching everything unfolding within this sort of space. And she immediately goes, yes, I want to get me in there. Let me at him, why I oughta. And she goes into this sort of window room. Well, it's the one dark window room, but she goes into the window room, and her narrative, the rest of her narrative, takes place when we pick up with Ravyn and the Nightmare / the Shepherd King later on in the plot. So what did you think about how this all unfolded?
I felt like this was the first time that, not the first time, but one of the bigger moments where you start to see like this Shepherd King Taxus version of him, where like he is a person who has emotions and like cares for Elspeth, without like this whole secret agenda. Like he's very worried about like if she's okay, where did she go, and the fact that like Ravyn has continued to try to use the nightmare card to like see if he can hear her in Taxus's mind, and like he shuts him down all the time, and he's like, quit doing that, quit messing with me, and Ravyn's like, okay, but keeps trying, and catches Taxus off guard when he's panicking about Elspeth, and Ravyn like uses the nightmare card to listen and hears him like panic calling for her, and I was like, oh, he's so worried. Like it just gave him a very like human quality that I feel like we had started to see glimpses of, but really like, oh, he's scared, that's cute.
Yeah, it makes I think it makes Taxus human, because I think the nightmare is the most inhuman part, like what people know him as, the most inhuman part of himself, this monster that he became over these 500 years. But even with the personification, or like the representation of the Shepherd King, the Shepherd King is sort of put on this pedestal as this mighty magic wielder, as this creator of Providence cards and the old book and all this stuff. But still, that's more of a figurehead than it is a person. And it was very humanizing, I think, to hear like, this guy got crowned as king at 17 years old. He was 17 and tasked with ruling a kingdom, and got his hands on a type of magic that he really thought was going to help. Like, I think it changes him from this figurehead or this monster into like who he was as a person.
For sure.
And I liked toward the end when he says like, I thought I could be a father to you in a way that I don't know if I could have been a father to my own kids. And I was like, like, oh my God. So we're going to get more into his story, but I like that you highlight the level of care and compassion and attention we see from him, even in this moment before we get all the other stuff. So we will pick up with Elspeth and the nightmare later on, but now it is time to shift our focus to Elm and Ione, the darker, more scandalous couple, I think, of the two. And there's a very brief moment where Ravyn is still at the castle while Elm and Ione are at Stone, and so he'll pop up a little bit, but for the most part, we're going to talk about his trajectory later. So first and foremost, we find Elm going to Hawthorne House. This is Ione Hawthorne's the house she grew up in, and Elspeth's aunt and uncle's house, her cousin's house, and all of Elspeth's family and the Hawthorns, once all the stuff in the first book unfolded, were told to get up and run. It was very clear that they were all going to be persecuted for whatever role they played in what happened to Hoth at the end of the first book. And so they're going back there to check for any people that are left over and to see if there are any Providence cards hidden within the Hawthorne house. And all of Elspeth's family are gone and hidden. And her father, Elspeth's father, Eric, is brought to the dungeons, as well as her uncle Tern. And so Elm really expects that the place is going to be deserted. He thinks that everybody is accounted for and gone. Surprise, surprise. Ione is there, and she is wearing an outfit that's not appropriate for the weather. She's wearing this like gauzy long gown, and it's freezing outside, and she doesn't seem to be connecting with that. And so from the very beginning, we see this is an effect of the maiden card that she has been using, or kind of been forced to use, to be more beautiful. But the problem with the maiden card is it makes you cold-hearted or unfeeling. So even her body is like cold and shivering, but she doesn't seem to notice. Once Elm runs into her through conversation that she has at the Hawthorne house, she basically demands that Elm take her back to Stone. And Elm's like, why would you do that? Like, why didn't you run with everybody else? What he doesn't know is that she's been looking for the maiden card that is kind of keeping her feelings hostage. And we'll get into more depth as to why that's happening. But she's like, I need to get to Stone and I need to get my maiden card. But Elm doesn't know this. So he's kind of like, I don't know why the hell you want to go back there, but fine. And then as they're riding back from the Hawthorne house, they're set upon by who else but the highwaymen, who are always haunting these streets and messing with people. They're out here messing with people constantly.
Do you know the scene from Shrek where he's bringing Fiona back to the castle and the like Robin Hood character comes out of the woods and starts singing? I cannot not picture that when they talk about these highwaymen. Like, I always just picture that very exact scene of men in tights singing. And then, especially in this situation where Fiona like beat their ass, I picture Ione like very similarly, just like doing her little spin in the air and kicking her legs.
When she does the like 2-leg kick.
Yeah, that's this scene in a more adult book
Uh-huh.
version.
Yeah. They definitely did a musical number. I remember that in the book as well as in the movie. That is so funny. I didn't even think about that till this moment, but it is a perfect representation. If you were to make it songified and Disneyified, that's exactly what this is. They come upon Elm and Ione, and they know that Elm can use the scythe card, so they're like, "Put your hands up." And Ione is skirting her little hand in between them because they're riding on a horse, obviously together. And she's like feeling around on his abdomen, and he's like, "Ooh, inappropriate time to get turned on, but I'm turned on." And she uses the scythe card to have one of the highwaymen kill his friend and then kill himself. And she's doing all this unblinkingly. She's like, "You kill him, you kill yourself." Like, she's wielding this card, and it's a little terrifying. And then she wields the card on Elm and makes Elm promise that he'll keep her out of the dungeons when they get back to Stone Castle. What Ione doesn't know until later is that Elm hates having the scythe card used on him, because that is what his brother Hoth used on him to torture him. Literally torture him, not like sibling torture, like traumatic physical and emotional torture. So he hates anybody having control over him, especially through the scythe card. It's part of why he got so good at wielding the scythe card. So he's like, "Stop it, and I'll give you whatever the fuck you want if you just stop using this card on me." So he's gotten himself in a little bit of a sticky wicket, now that he has to make sure that Ione stays out of the dungeons. And when they get back to Stone Castle, which they eventually do, this guy Lyndon, who is lame. Although, okay, so Lyndon is Hoth's BFF and pretty much seems like the only one who cares about Hoth through this whole book, and is a destrier. I have a theory that Lyndon may have some little feelings for Hoth, that he's sitting by Hoth's bedside, taking very good care of him. They are very clearly in love. And I would be willing to write a fanfic about that. If anybody demanded that of me, guys, reach out to me. I'm willing to do it. Twist my arm, pull my leg. I'll make it happen. But the whole time I was like, "Lyndon, why the fuck do you care so much? Like, what is this man doing to you?" Yeah, literally, like go save your little boy thing, and you two can ride off into the sunset together. Except I do want Hoth to die, but that's neither here nor there. Lyndon loves him just as friends. It's like in a history book when they're like, "These two women wrote love letters to each other because they were such good friends." And that's what I felt like. It was giving hints of that.
Yes.
So Lyndon catches Elm taking Ione back to his room. Elm is like, "You gotta warm up, girl. You're wearing this gauzy number that's not appropriate for a winter's night."
On.
Dude, literally, he's like, "Are you not chilly? You're about to go to the dungeons for a little bit. Like, your toes are gonna freeze off." She's like, whatever. And so the reason I highlight this is because Lyndon continually kind of becomes a pain in everybody's ass. He shows up in the most inopportune moments to just promote Hoth's agenda and foil Elm and Ione and whatever they're doing. Despite Lyndon trying to interfere, they get back to his room, and there is like immediate sexual tension, like I mentioned. I just felt like it was sparks immediately, and she's like dressing in his clothes. I'm like, shit. And he's like, my scent is on her. I'm like, "You're bringing up scents already?" Like, oh my god. Okay,
it happened quick. It did.
Oh, it did, and I was here for it. And
Same.
yeah, and Ione reveals, or Ione sort of solidifies, I guess, Elm helping her find the maiden card in return for her giving him back his scythe card. She's like, I gave you back the scythe. So now she's reaffirming, you're going to help me with this maiden card, right? And he goes, yes, I will help you with the maiden card. And it becomes like Elm starts by being like, okay, I'll take you back to Stone. And then he's like, okay, I'll help you find the maiden card. He kind of like goes along as he gets more and more information. He decides along the way, like, I'm going to help this girl. I don't care what it, like, I'm going to help her do whatever she needs to do. Lyndon comes back because he's a little bitch, and he's like, it's time to go in front of the king, everybody. It's an inquisition, and it includes Ravyn. And so Ravyn's there, Elm's there, Eric Spindle and Turn, and everybody's there. And Elm is made to stand behind the king because now he's the first heir, now that Hoth is out of commission from the Nightmare in book 1. And essentially chaos breaks out in this room, but Elm uses his scythe card to manipulate the situation and earn Ione her freedom in the castle. That's the, like, big action of the scene. Essentially the chaos is that Eric Spindle throws a titty attack about Elspeth, where is she, and all this stuff. And while Elm is controlling everybody in the room, which is a powerful form of magic, Ione's hands get cut by accident. Eric's freaking out and her hands get cut. And she's brought to a new room in the servants' quarters, and Elm is like, damn, that was a deep cut. I gotta go check on not my lady, but my lady. And he goes there to help her, and surprise, her hands are just fine. And what we learn is, and I loved this dynamic, was that the maiden card also has healing powers that no man had ever thought, that the maiden card might have other uses other than just making women beautiful. I don't know. Did that strike you at all? Like, I just thought that was so, like, feminist as fuck.
Yes, and there was a point when, like, Ione's describing this to him, and she was like, well, maybe we did know this, and we just didn't want to tell you idiots. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Stupid men.
Idiot, stupid. How dare you?
Succumb to your fate.
Like, oh, you want to treat me like a little porcelain doll object? I might just be invincible, but you'll never know.
And like, I'm watching you die right now, and I know I could do something, but also you're an ass, so good riddance.
Yeah, literally. Well, and also, like, you've made your bed, now lie in it. I don't feel anything, so I don't feel fucking bad that you're dying. Like,
I love how much she actually doesn't care about things.
Oh,
because it feels just like a power play.
Yeah, talk about it. Like, what got to you about it?
The way that she is just like, yeah, I did that. Like, I killed the highwayman. Someone had to. Like, you weren't doing it. Like, she's just so like, well, yeah, about everything. And even just like the banter with her and Elm, I just absolutely love the way that she's basically like, you're an idiot. And he's like, yeah, but I'm a cute idiot. And I feel like that's just a lot of the theme that happens.
But I'm pretty. And she's like, you are pretty. Yeah, I thought this was such a cool look at, because I think it helped create this vibe that women characters aren't just these like intensely feeling like we go by our feelings characters all the time. She's got this cold rage to her that's just like I'm staying focused. I'm not going to be distracted by this or that or the other thing or this guy getting killed. I'm going to keep my focus. And I think even when she gets her emotions back, she has this like steadiness, this strength about her that just, maiden card or not, I think she really grows into a woman who's just like got this groundedness about her no matter what, whether she's got the emotions in place or not.
Yeah, for sure.
I really like that. So we find out that the maiden card has healing powers. Elm agrees to help her find it. We also find out that Elm can like freeze a room full of people, just pause everybody, like push the pause button on a whole room of people, which becomes important that he's able to do that later. And after this is all coming to fruition, Elm takes Ione down to see the nightmare, who is, as we know from book 1, in Elspeth's body. And this also becomes confusing, like when is it Elspeth and when is it the nightmare? So I'm going to say the nightmare, but know that it's Elspeth's body, even though it's the nightmare's eyes that are coming through. He even cuts Elspeth's hair. Like, he becomes his physicality becomes different when it's the nightmare, but it very much is Elspeth's face and body. And so I think Elm takes her down there really to be like, you should see your cousin. You should see kind of what's become of her. And the nightmare is doing what he always does, which is like flashing his yellow eyes at everybody and telling riddles
and clicking in the corner.
Okay. This is like mildly embarrassing, maybe not, but like anytime he does the clicking, I would like sit in my chair and try to replicate. Like, how would you do a clicking noise with a human body? Like, with your teeth?
Yes, I picture like with the nails, like the yes, but that's like, I don't think he's sitting there like clacking his nails together. I think it is like a
vocal
with
thing?
his mouth type
with his
thing,
teeth?
but that's the type of click I picture.
See, I feel like, because clicking with your teeth, because I did it several times, I was like, how loud could you click with your teeth? It's hard to make a loud clicking noise with your teeth, but like you like maybe like a you could like do it kind of with the back of your mouth. I don't know.
Either way, creeped me out, but I loved it.
Yeah, but it's one of those things, like, you ever like when you're reading and someone's like, they curled their lip back, like you kind of sit there and you're like,
yeah.
Like, you're just like, how would I do that? But in a menacing way, like there's no good way to do that.
Yeah.
So I spent a good amount of time. Every time he clicked his teeth, I was like, can I make my teeth click loud? And the answer is no. I could do it a little bit, but not a lot. So he's clicking his teeth and flashing his yellow eyes. And in an odd show of tenderness, Ione puts her hand on his cheek, and this is something I think that Elm tracks, that despite her talking about being unfeeling, or that the maiden card makes you unfeeling, she has these moments where like she shines through. And so she puts her hand on the nightmare's cheek. It says, like, let me talk to Elspeth. Please let me talk to Elspeth. And at this point, Elspeth is in the dark, deep, like, she's not out to play at all in any way. So the nightmare says, no, you can't talk to her. She's healing. She needs to rest. So much has happened. Nobody's talking to Elspeth. And in an odd show of tenderness on the nightmare's part, he tells Ione that Elspeth really loved and admired her deeply. And I think even in Ione's quote-unquote unfeeling stage, this means something to her, that there's sometimes she talks about sort of a depth of feeling that she really can't identify anymore, but that it's there. And so eventually, so they go down to the dungeon and they leave, and Elm figures out that Ione wants to be free of the maiden card, but the reason she hasn't freed herself yet is because she's lost it. So he kind of puts two and two together. He's like, if she wanted to have the maiden card back, she could have done it already. She hasn't. So it seems like she's lost it. And he vows to himself and to Ione that he'll help her find it. And it's sort of the first time he's really committed himself to any one person. He doesn't like Hoth. He doesn't like Stonecastle. He doesn't like his father. He's really, up until this point, only been committed to Ravyn, because Ravyn has helped him a lot in his life. But he commits himself to this task. And they try to get the nightmare to tell Ione where her maiden card is. But while he could see the maiden cards, they glow, when we talked about this in the first book, and he could see that there are 3 of them in the castle. It's not like he has like a gazer beam where he could see exactly where they are. He says, there are 3 of them here. I don't know where they are, but they're somewhere within the castle. And in his very nightmare riddle way, he's like, I'll be needing you later, Elm, to steal back the throne. Click, 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 click. Like he's like, I'll be seeing you later, little boy. And I was like, okay, I don't know what you mean. And so after this meeting with the Nightmare and this Inquisition, Elm is standing on the ramparts next to the king, and he's watching Ravyn ride away on his quest for the Twin Alders card. And the king is telling him, you've got to step up as prince now. Hoth is down for the count. He's not doing well. He's like drooling on a pillow somewhere, and it's time to shine. And Elm really, really hates this. He has been the forgotten son his whole life and happily would stay away from Stone Castle forever. But he recognizes if he's going to be any help at all to Ione, he needs to play the game. The more power he has, the more ability that he has to help her. And this only drives up the amount of time Ione and Elm spend together, and the chemistry just continues to get hotter and hotter and hotter.
They're back and forth. I just love, like, even when she's like, yeah, but you didn't know me. Like, you just want me because I'm this beautiful girl stuck in this maiden card. And he's like, oh, you think I don't remember you? Like, let's make a bet. Go ahead. Play me. And just the way that they're like at each other about it and like tease each other, I love it, because it's all like this like flirtatious back and forth where they're like, oh, you think that it's that way? Like, I'll show you. I'll prove you.
Yeah.
And she's just like,
you think
so
you're gonna
like
get to
eye
me?
roll dismissive, but then will like, you know, blushing up the neck, blushing of the cheeks, and he's like, saw that.
He's like, I'm watching you, girl. Which I love to see a man who's so keyed into what their woman is doing that they notice these like little changes.
Right, like the corner of her lip twitched, and he was like, there you are.
You're watching me that closely. Like you notice a little twitch in my lips. You notice a little like pinkiness on my cheeks. Hot. And so this begins a lot of time that Elm and Ione are spending together. And one of the things they have to do, and we commented on this in the last book, the fucking feast. Every day is another feast. And I honestly, if I had to attend a feast every day, I would be like, I'm not even hungry from the last feast. We just feasted.
And just matching the vibe of the season, in the original Grinch book by Dr. Seuss, he's really annoyed with the Who's, and he has this like, and they'll feast. My toddler is really in love with that book right now, and that's just, when we have our annoyance of feasting, I'm like, it's giving Grinch energy.
Oh my god, literally.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so true.
Yeah.
Oh, feast.
Yeah.
Oh man, they have their roast beast every day, and they just harp on that shit every fucking day. And so the king, in all his like wiliness, reveals that there will be 6 feast days. For 6 days, we're gonna feast all the days, and on the 6th day, Elm will choose a wife. And Elm is like, no, he's enraged, and he's like, you know, when like he's about to go Hulk mode, and then like the woman like puts her hand on his arm and is like, come away, sir, let's distract you. Ione does that in her own like boss bitch way. She's like, let's go grab a drink. Like,
yeah, she's like, let's go get crunk, because this is for the birds.
Yeah. Let's blow this popsicle stand before you do something really stupid. And so they go.
Not that she'd care, but
no, not that she would blush about it at all or anything.
Yeah.
So they are like, all right, let's go play a little drinking game. And they hide out in that Knights of the Round Table cellar room that Ravyn likes to use for his council. And they make a little wager. that if Elm remembers Ione from before she used the maiden card, he gets a kiss. And if not, Ione gets 1 minute control over him with the scythe card. Which even this was like, girl, you like control? This is giving a little like dumb energy right here. She's like, I want to make you do things. And he's like, you want to make me do stuff? Like, they have
He's
this
like, I'm a little nervous, but this is also kind of nice.
He's like, I'm scared and aroused. Like, he's like, I'm frightened, but I kind of like this. And I was like, oh, is it about to get, like, the first time I read it, I was like, are we about to get BDSM-y up in here? They don't really, but
there was room for it, but that's okay.
There was a clear opening for it.
Yep.
Opportunity not taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what can we do? And so to up the ante a little bit, they use the chalice card, which draws the truth from a person. And if they try to lie, they start vomiting blood, which Elspeth learned the hard way in book 1. And so they're using the chalice card partially to do this little drinking game, but partially because they think that maybe if they use the chalice and Ione starts talking about the memory she has about the maiden card, that kind of intrinsically her body won't let her lie about it, or she'll kind of figure her way through the truth because her body will tell her whether or not something is true. And so Elm asks her about it in a series of questions, and the truth of the situation with the maiden card comes out. And basically, Hoth had used the scythe card on Ione at Equinox. Remember when Elspeth and Ione and all the fam came first to Stone Castle for the Equinox? Hoth used the scythe card on her then, and she really couldn't remember much about the night that she had under the power of the scythe card. Just that she had cracked stone under her hand. So somewhere where it was hidden, there was cracked stone under her hand. And that when his control over her was gone, so wasn't the maiden card. And she tried to get the maiden card back, and Hoth wouldn't do it. Alongside of what we learn about Ione's path with the maiden card, we learn that Elm had been abused by his brother. This is hinted at and kind of talked about throughout the first book, but it's never said with such blatant, like, such straightforwardness. And I don't think up till that point it had been said to Ione specifically. So he tells her that he was abused by his brother Hoth, and that had continued for several years until Ravyn asked Elm basically what was up, and Elm told him about the abuse, and Ravyn took Elm away from Stone Castle. That's when Elm went to live with the U's. I'm curious for you, Becky, like, after we get a window into each, it kind of is like each one of their traumas. Like, we get this little window and more information comes out later, but what were you thinking of them as characters once we saw or kind of got a more full picture of what they had been to been through up until this point?
Yeah, I think, again, like you said, it was hinted at a lot with Elm that, like, there was this, like, past that was really hard for him, and all of the reasons that he resents his family, wants nothing to do with them. But I feel like it connected the dots a little bit of, like, that's why you're so angry. That's why you feel like it took away the, like, young prince who just thinks he's too good for everyone. It really removed that layer, and it was like, oh, that's just a mask. Like, you actually are like this hurt boy and you're just trying to keep yourself safe. And for her, very similarly, like, oh, you're not just like this careless girl who lost your card because of course you would, you beautiful brat. And it's like, no, someone did something horrible to you. And so it just like, and I was like, see, aren't you guys perfect for each other, and aren't you so in love?
Look at the ways that you can, like, bond over your traumas and, like, be vulnerable. Look what happens when you're vulnerable and you tell people what's happened.
Because you have to, because magic made you.
Yeah, exactly. There was no choice but for the magic to make us reveal our truths. It's not like we could reveal our truths in like a journey of self-discovery driven by
healthy
the magic
communication.
Yeah, that's not enough of a reason ever. We are totally joking about that, and we live by the creed of the power of talking about your problems.
Yes.
That you should do that. You should not wait for a magical circumstance to get a little vulnerable.
Yes. However, the people who are waiting for the magical circumstance is why we are so heavily employed. Because the magic hasn't happened yet. And they need some support.
Yeah, it's a good bit of job security for us that there's been no Providence cards to drive the vulnerability. Oh. Yeah. That was so funny. Oh my god. So they share their traumas and they share their vulnerabilities, and each one of them is like, you know, Elm is so angry for her and whatever, and Ione can't feel much, but she kind of, I think underneath it is kind of feeling for him and understanding him better. I also think, as you mentioned, his character really turns once you realize that he's not just like this like asshole. I think in the first book we talked about, he kind of comes across as this like asshole frat guy, almost like fuck all this and like who cares and whatever. And it's like, now, I mean, we as counselors, once we understand your backstory, we really were like, there it is, penny drops, and now we can empathize. Now we have something to work with. So they say their truths, and Ione, one of her truths is that she can't feel much in the way of emotions. But do you know what she does feel? Desire. That one didn't
she feels
go
an
away.
Ache below her stomach.
Her ache below her belly button. No, lower. In her core, she feels a tangle in her jangle. And they get hot and heavy. They start doing some stuff. They get handsy.
And also, she lost the bet.
She did lose the bet. That is very true.
Ma'am, I do remember you and your freckles and your teeth gap and your yellow hair and how you danced and didn't care. And she was like, fuck.
And the mud on your ankles as you rode your horse through the glades and whatnot. Also, as a girl with a gap teeth representation, we love to see it.
Same, I got my little
gap teeth.
Yeah, my dentist tried to sell me Invisalign and I was offended.
Oh, you want to talk about dentists? I don't know if it's just I'm sure there's some lovely dentists out there. My dentist at one point was like, so your teeth are kind of small for your face. Have you thought about veneers? And I was like, what a fucked up thing to say to a person. Like something I had never thought to be insecure about in my life. Just like add that to the pile.
I felt like my gap was not even that noticeable. And she was like, do you want something to fix that? I was like, is it problematic? And she was like, no, just cosmetically. And I was like, no.
Why don't you let me tell you if I think it's a problem? So this is a message.
Gap is disgusting to you, but I'm fine with it.
Number one, I'm fine with it. Number two, I can, in fact, like squirt water through them. So secret talents, why don't you stop assuming that I don't want a gap in my teeth?
Yeah. So
and Ione's out
keep
here.
The gap, you know?
That's going to be the new craze. # keep the gap. All of our gap tooth girls out there, we're with you. We stand in solidarity. And you know what? Ultimately, so does an Ione.
And Elm likes it, so.
Elm really likes it, so we're out here representing the excellence this gap tooth people. So yeah, he does remember a ton of stuff about her, and she's like, man, egg on my face. And what? You're the amount of laughter you have right now, I don't understand. What is it?
The egg come.
What got you about that? I've ever seen you laugh so hard at anything I've said ever.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that.
You haven't?
Oh,
It's like, I didn't make that up.
anyway, regroup.
Dude, I did not make that up. That's a thing that
I
people
didn't think
say.
you did. It was just a, not, not something I've heard, I think.
I kept,
It's a good visual.
I went to keep going, and you were like loosing your shit in the corner of my screen. Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, it's like the vibe of like tomatoes, but like
tomatoes, what are you talking about?
like boo and people. So they touch bodies and it gets ruined.
Yeah. They touch bodies, and Ione's like, touch my boob, and he's like, oh, don't mind if I do. And they are getting up each other's business, and stupid idiot physician Gillig, who's like ultimately on their team, but like he walks in on them, he doesn't knock, and they're like, oh, and Ione just like grabs her shit and runs. Like, no explanations. Elm's like, Ione, wait, come back. She gone, brother. She's out of here. And Elm is hurt by this. He doesn't understand why she ran, and he feels very vulnerable because he feels like he's never been seen with a woman the way he was seen with Ione. He feels like she really saw him truly and then ran away. Now, I'm a little bit of the mind that like, hey, Gillig walked in on y'all. I would be, like, I don't
this
know
is your
Gillig.
brother's fiance.
Yeah,
little weird.
Yeah, I don't know. But I might run away. I might be like, I'm not going to stick around for whatever Gillig's gonna say to me. I gotta go. But Elm goes and he sulks in the library. He's like, I'm going to take out my pencils and my drawing pad and I'm just going to draw stuff. And he is drawing her and whatever.
So unintentionally.
Just, it literally, it's such a, what do they call it? A trope. He's all of a sudden he's sketching a nose and some eyes and he looks down and it's Ione. He didn't even mean to, and it's all just coming together now. And in the midst of his sulking and drawing, another woman comes into the library because now everybody knows they got the feasts. He's on the marriage mart.
The wife feasts.
Oh yeah. the marriage feasts. I don't know how much Bridgerton you're watching, but he's out on the marriage mart. He's on the Ton. He's had his debut.
Yes.
And now he's being flaunted in front of the ladies of Stone Castle. I actually really liked the way this woman came on to him. Like, she was essentially a tool for something. Like, one of her family members had basically, told her to come on to him. And they have kind of like a very real moment. Like, she's like, hello, Prince Elm. Do you want to? And then she like reveals her ankle. She's like,
yeah, she's like, you want to draw me like the Titanic lady?
Do you want to draw me like one of your French girls? And Elm's like, someone put you up to this, didn't they? And she was like, yeah, pretty much. He's like, do you actually want to be doing this? She was like, not 100%. Actually. And they kind of just like salute each other and she leaves. But the important part about that conversation is that it causes Elm to realize that he should look into Hoth and Ione's marriage contract, because very technically the marriage contract says that it is between Ione and the heir to the kingdom. And now Elm's starting to put two and two together. He's using his noodle and he's starting to go, it doesn't say Hoth's name, it says heir. And so yeah, he's like, oh man, I think I could work this out for my benefit. So he grabs the heirs and Ione's marriage contract, and confirms it. He's like, ha ha ha, look, there it says. And he immediately brings it to the Yu's house. He's like, we can't keep this in the castle. If anybody finds it, once I like reveal my schemes, they're going to try to destroy it. We can't have that. So he leaves it with the Yu's, and he waits until his father is drunk at night 2 of the feast. Which, by the way, if drunkenness is involved with these feasts, I don't have steam. Like, I could maybe do one night, 2 if you give me like 4 Celsiuses and let me take a nap. Like, I don't know how you get to 6.
Also, with the king in particular, his sweet, precious babe is unwell. So how could he possibly stomach that sober?
He couldn't, and he doesn't. Let me tell you what, he gets more and more drunk as this narrative unfolds, but
which ends up being a bit convenient.
There's a bit of a convenient item to that.
Yes.
And for much of this book, I spend a lot of time being like, King, get your shit together. Your kingdom needs you. The fuck are you doing? But he's drunk, and Elm makes sure it stays that way. He's like, I'm gonna get my dad good and drunk. And he's like, Papa, do you accept me as heir? What all with Hoth and whatnot. And asks the king to vow that he will honor Elm's choice in a bride, that he's going to pick someone that the king already approves of, which is very technically true because it's in the marriage contract, not for Elm, but he doesn't specify. And the king's like, okay, sounds good. And Elm goes, good, great, grand, thank you, Papa, and like dips. But he's building this sort of tower of deception around essentially securing Ione's safety through a marriage between him and Ione. And of course it's for Ione's safety. It's nothing more. It's not like he wants to touch her boob or whatever. It's all very altruistic.
Of course.
Yeah. And so while this marriage contract scheming is unfolding, there also unfolds Ione and Elm's attempts to find the maiden card. And there's a couple of things that don't work. First, they go to the King's Providence card stash and they retrieve the Prophet and the Mirror. And Ione tries to use the Prophet to see where her card is. The Prophet gives you a vision. It could be of the past, the present, or the future. In this case, Ione has a vision of someone's death when there is snow on the ground and the nightmare watching over them, handing Ione the Twin Alders card. This totally comes to pass. But at the time, she's like, that's a weird vision. Also doesn't help me with the maiden card, so...
I don't get it.
I know. What's happening? It's like, girl, lock the fuck in, please. And then they also try to leave the third feast and check out a bunch of statues in the garden. He like swims out to one. Of course, he has to like disrobe to find it. And
he's like, I bet you wanted to take that shirt off me. And she's like, ugh.
She's like, gross, you and your fucking abs and shit. And so while they're having these unsuccessful adventures in finding the card, Elm is finding a little bit more success with the contract and the king. He has the king sign and confirm that Elm is the heir, which locks him into that marriage contract. And Hoth also starts to wake up. This initially terrifies Elm and Ione, but he is as close to an animated vegetable as a person could be. Like, he is awake, but he's not saying much and he's not thinking much. And so they kind of take a breath of relief. They're like, okay, Hoth is awake, but not totally. He's not out here doing crazy stuff. So they go back to searching, and finally they do something that works. Elm takes the nightmare card from Hoth's room and goes to Ione and asks her to think through her experiences that night, but with Elm watching her mind. So she's going to run through the memories. He's going to watch and see if any part of it looks familiar to him. And as she does this, he sees the night that Hoth got her drunk and made her hide the maiden card. And can kind of tell, and we'll get into this in a second, but he recognizes where her hand and that cracked stone are. She also shows him, because he like sees this scene, he's like, okay, we're good. She's like, no, keep watching. She wants to show him this, that that Hoth had pushed Ione out of a tall window at Spindle House, and that she had almost died in the process. She fell from a tower room.
And
But
Hoth
that,
is under the impression that she did.
yes, Hoth believes that she died, but the maiden card healed her. And you see like her getting, and there's this vivid image of her staring up at the sky while her body is sort of slowly healing itself, and how impactful that was for her to figure out that the maiden card healed, but also to go through that experience was very traumatic.
Yeah, and I just feel like this moment it was such like an emotional part of the book, because it's like you already know some of the horrible things that Hoth had done to Ione and to Elm, but especially
Yeah.
to Ione, of like you already know she's hurting from the experiences that she's had, and Elm has like some understanding of that, and then it really just like locks in like why she has so much like rage and hate and hurt towards Hoth,
Yeah.
and why she's also so terrified of everything that is potentially happening or could happen, why she really wants Elm to help her with all of these things. And it was just like so like bittersweet, because it's
Mm.
also a great moment where like Elm just wants to take care of her after that. He's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, feels like almost responsible in a weird way, of
Yeah.
like, I didn't know this happened to you and how horrible, and he's the most awful person I've ever met, and he really just tries to like be there for her around it.
Mm.
And I was like, see, there's the love.
Oh my gosh. And I think the fact that they both have suffered at the hands of Hoth draws them into a mutual understanding. Like they have an understanding of one another's experience in a way that I don't know if anybody else really could. They've suffered at the hands of Hoth in a really unique way. Other people have been affected by Hoth's actions, but no one has suffered quite as much as Elm and Ione have. And I think they also draw strength from it. They see each other being brave despite their fears of Hoth, and I think they sort of band together in that. Like they look at each other, and when one of them is being brave about it, they're like, okay, like he's facing this, so I'm gonna face this, or she's facing this, so I'm gonna face it. And it's really, it's a tender thing to watch them see each other's stories and be seen by each other's stories. It's crazy. And so through these memories, Elm realizes he knows where the hiding place of her card is. And he takes her to the throne room, and they go to the fireplace. They've been looking in the gardens because it's all stone, cracked stone, but it's actually the fireplace. And they find a card along with several other weapons and torture devices that are hidden in the crack. And what you realize is that Elm also knows where this is, because Hoth would take sort of tools of torture out of this hiding spot to torture Elm with. And so they have this like also, seeing each other moment. And they go back to Ione's room with the maiden card, and it's this big moment. And Ione taps it 3 times, and it frees her from the card. And she just sobs. And she says, even before she does, she's like, I'm going to be a lot. After I tap this card, there's going to be a lot of shit that comes out because of it. And she does. She cries really hard, and they hug, and he looks at her for the first time without the magical influence, kind of since the maiden had taken over. And he thinks she is just stunning. And he names all the things we've talked about, the freckles and the gap and it's all the things that make her her. And I think something that was really cool about this moment is she asks Elm to leave. She asks Elm to leave and she says, I need a second. I need to process alone for a little bit, which it was so powerful to watch her state what she needs in that moment for me. And you could tell me kind of what your thoughts were here. To state what she needs and then to have Elm, he's a little hurt. He doesn't understand totally, but he respects it. He says she needs her thing and he goes, and I'll tell you where they go in a second. But did that stick out for you at all? Or
I think the other part too, where he talks about how hard it was to respect her wishes, but how he knew it was so important for him to do it because she needed to have that space and needed to go through the process, and how like if he tried to push comforting her, like it would upset her more, and like she didn't, like, she kind of like rejected him a little bit in that moment, in the sense of like she was like, go, and he was like, okay, even though he really didn't want to, but like still knew like that, like, I'm going to follow what she needs. I'm going to follow her lead instead of like pushing what I want. And I was just like, oh, we love that. We love a respectful man.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And to have the ego integrity, to have the confidence to be like, you know what? This is hard for me to do, but someone's asking me what they need, telling me what they need right now. So I will do it and I will trust that this process will work itself out. I thought that was just such a cool moment. And so Elm takes his little butt herself and he goes to Hoth's room. And he's a little dramatic, and it makes it harder for him later by him doing this. But he throws the nightmare card back into Hoth's chest, sort of at the end of his bed. Who's there but Lyndon?
Of course,
sitting over his boyfriend's bed, holding his hand or whatever.
Yes, and stroking his hair.
yeah, gently stroking his hair as friends do.
Yes,
and Elm is being stupidly dramatic in my opinion. He's like, here's the card, and he's like, he's not worth it, man, and walks out.
Which, like, read the room. Lyndon's in love with him. It's always gonna feel worth it. You weren't doing anyone any favors in that moment, and which we come to find out is really true.
You gave him the nightmare card. Why
right
the actual fuck are you leaving the nightmare card with him? That was like, I was just like, why? And I don't know if it hit me that way the first time, but the second time I
didn't have any idea. Like, in that moment, I was like, yeah, he's like done with him and blah, blah, blah. Like, just expressing some of his frustration and ready to like put it to bed, move on. This isn't even worth it. Screw this guy. He's horrible. And I'm like, yeah, be done. Go get your girl.
Stupid.
And yeah, I didn't realize the first time how poor of a choice that was.
Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking the first time. I don't remember. The second time I was like, you're having a dramatic moment. I get it. You're sticking it to him. You're handing him the card, but could you find a different way? Could you just walk in and say to Lyndon, yo, your boyfriend's not worth it. He's trash. And walk out. Like, don't give him the card.
People kill each other over Providence cards. So to just like toss, like, no, maybe just hang on to it a little bit longer,
Just recognize that you have a very powerful card in your hands. One of two in existence.
One that also put your love in the hands of this horrible person. So imagine how she felt when you just like frivolously just take it.
Yeah,
we don't need you anymore.
It's just like, yo, I need you to grow up a little bit. I need you to see the bigger picture. It literally
almost cost her life, but okay.
Okay. Never mind. My bad. Like, so you toss the card, you make your statement. You're going to go learn to regret that, but whatever you need to do. So,
and then he goes and pouts outside of her door.
He does. He like sits down in front of her door and he just waits like a little sad puppy dog. And he's very patient. He's like, I'm just going to wait it out until she lets me back in. And she like comedically opens it and he like falls backwards. He's like, hey, I've been here. And there is such like a sweet moment between them where he just crawls into her bed and she like big spoons him to his little spoon, and they sleep and they wake up and they look at each other and they share their first memories of seeing one another and they affirm their feelings for each other. There's like so much tenderness.
I loved when he was like, "Do you hate me?" And she was like, "No."
She's like, "No, I don't." Oh, this scene to me was chef's kiss of like communication, co-regulating, which we'll talk about later, like just two people getting on the same page and not fucking around and not lying or going back and forth or hiding shit from each other. Just like, we're going to connect eye to eye for a minute and get our ducks in a row. And they do. Mm-hmm. And they have a very sweet moment. And in celebration of all of this, they go for a horse ride and they like are free in the wind and her hair is blowing back and it's all very
and she's
beautiful.
Laughing and she's happy.
Yeah, they're both happy, they're free, they're trouncing through the glens and the glades of wherever. And then they stop in a little meadow. And they do the deed. They do the nasty. They do it. They describe the whole thing. There's no fade to black. We get to read the entire experience. And the whole world cheers and is like, hiya! And it was awesome.
Yeah, there was enough banter to go around to lead up to this moment. Like, the sexual tension had reached its peak that, like, if this was not what had happened on this horseback ride, I think I would have just given up at that point.
I would have quit. Yeah. There, and that's the thing, like, with fantasy and romantasy books, one of the most unbelievable things, I think, is just how long these slow burns go on. Like, I've met a lot of people in my life, and I've talked to a lot of people about very deep things and their secrets and the way they move through the world and blah, blah, blah.
And you know what they don't have?
What?
This amount of sexual control.
No, they don't. By and large, outside of maybe you're demisexual or you're asexual or you're like, most of the time, if you're not, partnered or beholden to somebody and you feel a vibe, it doesn't, there's not this long lead up. It's like, you feel a vibe and I feel a vibe. Like,
yeah.
It's just, it seems time and time again, I find myself being like, the amount of almost over self-control that some of these folks have, I'm like, this does not reflect for most people that I've talked to.
And I suppose that in this fantasy world, they've got a lot of life stressors going on right now that do semi-interfere, like all of these near-death experiences, but also grow up.
Do you know what provides the brain with like a good amount of feel-good hormones and neurotransmitters things?
Yeah, they're just actually making life harder.
Yeah. Can you imagine what your attitude might be like if you just like banged one out and then went and faced your problems?
Yeah, you'd probably be a lot more like clear-minded.
Probably that post-coital clarity. They probably would get some of that going. And
I feel that way.
You're like, been there a time or two.
Yeah. So,
you know what? I appreciate that. Of course, there was some kind of build, but it didn't feel laborious to me. It didn't feel like, Jesus, like, we're in chapter 1,000,000 and you all are still like touching fingertips or whatever. Like,
yeah, no, this felt, there were moments where I was like, come on, but it wasn't grinding my gears.
Yep, exactly. And so they have this beautiful moment. They ride the horses in the glen and they tumble in the hay and they look at the sun and whatnot. And then they go back to Stone and they're like, you know what? We're going to announce our engagement. Elm's like, all my shit's coming to fruition. I'm going to tell everybody what I've been scheming about. And when they get back, Hoth is awake. And it's for real this time. and it is bad, bad, bad. Guess what? That nightmare card that you left in the room, Lyndon used it. And he figured out what Hoth's been trying to tell people, which is he figured out the healing properties of the maiden card, so that if someone just gives him the maiden card, he will heal himself. Like, So Lyndon, little bitch, Destrier, you suck. And we get it. You're defending your boyfriend, but it
and
all
now he
comes
looks
together.
Beautiful for you. So
yeah, he looks. He's gorgeous. He's gorgeous, and he's powerful, and he's going to be king. He doesn't seem too interested in what you got going on sexually, but who knows? All we know he's kind of a sadist, so it's anybody's game at this point. And so it's very bad. It's everybody's worst nightmare. What's about to unfold? Hoth uses the scythe card to freeze Ione and Elm in place. He beats Elm and brings up a lot of their traumatic past. He makes Ione use the maiden card again and has her stab herself, or he maybe stabs her. I think he stabs her in the heart to see if the maiden card will work with a wound that severe. It does, thankfully, but this is again deeply traumatic to both Ione and Elm. Hoth reveals what I just discussed, that once he realized that Ione had survived him pushing her out the window, he waited till Lyndon used the nightmare card to talk into his mind, and they schemed, and now he thinks of himself as invincible. He says, now I cannot be killed, and I'm gonna fuck everybody's shit up. And it's about to get even worse. Like, it's about to get truly diabolical when Philip and the king run in, and Philip makes like a little jokey joke. He's like, sorry, I didn't knock. And it's like, Philip, not the time to call back to that time when you saw me touching Ione's boob. Like, Jesus Christ.
Read the room, dude.
Yeah,
there's blood everywhere.
People are scared, and Hoth tells the king to make the next feast in Hoth's honor, because he's about to get something. He's up to something.
And again, we got the hints about Elm brought the nightmare card back to the room and he was just done with it, but Lyndon was there. And that wasn't what I anticipated was going to happen. That sound, nor what happened in the book. But either way, this was so unexpected for me, like Hoth waking up and in this way, in the way that he's like, did she tell you what I did at Spindle House? And I was like, somebody shoot him. Like, what is happening? Where's the nightmare? Like, in that moment, I so desperately was like, is this the part of the book where it's like, and then you find out the nightmare and Ravyn knew the whole time that Hoth woke up and they come running in the room and save the day? And that's not what happened. Like, Hoth gets his way and it's horrible and miserable and everything is bad and everything was just so good. And so it was just a real
smack in the face.
Yeah.
It was that classic, like, we should have known that the sex was too good in the Glen. Like, it was like, you're going to have to pay for that.
Like, there's still too much of the book left for this to end this way. But in the moment, I'm just eating it up. Like, yes, get your queen. And then I'm like,
everything's going to be perfect.
Yeah. And then I'm like, what the fuck do you mean Hoth woke up?
Yeah. No. It was big, big, bad, big, scary, big, sad. I was very upset. And so Hoth holds this worse. Oh, by the way, it gets worse. And while we're at it, Hoth holds this feast and uses the scythe card to keep Elm and Ione bound, as well, it seems, the entire court. Like, it's like a puppet court. He's like, dance, everyone, be merry, do as I say. And everyone's like, okay. Everyone's scared. And he reveals that he wants to keep people scared, and he wants the mist and blunder. He's like, all you idiots who have been trying to get rid of this mist, the fear is what drives the people. He really is like diabolical, evil dude speech here. And And he wants to keep Elm and Ione as collateral for when Ravyn gets back. He's thought of kind of each element of this. He's like, we're going to keep the mist. I'm going to keep the fear that the people have of the destriers and the physicians. And when Ravyn gets back here and he finds out that I have his best friend and his lover's cousin as hostage, I'm going to use them to take Ravyn down too. And he has Elm pour all of them wine, and in the king's wine there is poison. So he poisons his own father, Hoth does, through Elm. And poor Elm, he doesn't realize what he's doing, and nobody does. But in the only thing the king does through these entire books that I am like, hell yeah, king, with his last breaths, he tackles Hoth and gets the scythe card out of his hand and gives the scythe to Elm. And Elm, king of the scythe that he is, uses it once again to freeze everybody in the room except for himself and Ione. And he's like, we need to get on a horse, you and I both, and we need to get the fuck out of here. And they ride out of Stone Castle.
And this whole scenario at this feast where the king gets poisoned, like, I think the timing of this, like how the author wrote it, and like, because you're still so like gobsmacked that Hoth is awake, that you don't anticipate so soon there being another like major event. And also like the king and Hoth are like on the same page and like in cahoots this whole time. So as far as like anyone that I would pick to be Hoth's target, the king is like the last person in mind. So this, like, I was like, wait, what? Like, I was like, did I read that right? Like, hold on. Like, I was just, that got me. It got me good.
And I wonder too what role the maiden card has in that, right? Like, he's already experiences very little empathy. He's already a sadist at the very least, if not just a psychopath or a sociopath. And I imagine that him using the maiden card, because he continues to use it, because now he sees the maiden card as invincibility. So he starts using it to heal himself, but he never stops using it. So he gets more and more pretty for his boyfriend, but then he also gets colder and colder. And if you already start, like Ione started from a very emotional place and got colder from there, Hoth is starting already some of his emotional capacity impaired, if not like absolutely non-existent. And so I wonder if he hadn't been using the maiden card, would he have killed his dad? And I don't know if we ever know that answer, but I think that's part of what makes it shocking, is like, I don't know if the Hoth that we met at the top of book 1 would have killed his dad. But
yeah, that's a fair point.
Something has shifted in him
the whole time.
Oh,
but this definitely is like peak horrible psycho.
Yeah. That now the gloves are off, and now it's just the worst parts of Hoth.
Yes.
And so Elm and Ione get away, but Elm can't hold them forever. Elm can't hold that whole castle, that whole room still forever. It's good because the scythe will hurt you, and eventually you start bleeding out of your nose. Like, it really is painful. So he's riding away with Ione, and they get a certain distance from the castle, and he's in such pain that he falls off his horse. Ione tries to help him, and he compels her through the power of the scythe to leave, to ride to you and not come back. And he's adamant about staying at Stone Castle and facing Hoth so that Ione can get away. And she rides away. And when he can't hold it anymore, and he says it's about 20 minutes, he's like, I tried to hold it for another 20 minutes or so, and I couldn't do it anymore. He releases everyone in Stone, and eventually the Destriers come and get him. Something that really shocked me, and they never fully address it. And I think maybe in Ione's mind, maybe it wasn't as big a deal as I think I was assuming it might be. Having Elm use the scythe card to compel Ione to leave felt like a betrayal to me, honestly. And I don't know, like, you know what it feels like to be under the compulsion of the scythe card, and you're going to do that anyway. And you know that she knows what that feels like. I was
also
upset
like
by
she
that.
doesn't want to leave you.
No. Like, you're taking
And
her
this whole
autonomy away.
time, yeah, and that's been such a big theme throughout the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing. And like, I get that this was a life or death situation. And
Mm-hmm.
also, it like pissed me off that he didn't go with her. I'm
Oh,
like, what is staying back gonna do?
what are you
Just
gonna?
go.
And he
Run
says that
away.
later. He says, I was such a fucking idiot. Why didn't I go with her? Like, I think he was coming from a prideful place of like, finally, I was thinking about taking my place as the heir and the king, and I thought I could do some good. And so now I got to face this. But like, bro,
Or don't.
there, there are so many ways to do that. Come back another day when you're like strapped up. Like, do it
Yeah,
in a
take a
way that
minute. Take a minute. There's an armory at Castle U. We've read about it before. Maybe go feel a little bit more prepared, rest up a bit, have some hot soup, and then get back at it.
do. I like that it's soup. That's it. That's what's going to do it. Have a hot soup, a crust of bread, and some water before you go back there and take people down. It's just like, and he fully admits later, he's like, I was stupid. I shouldn't have done
Yeah,
that. But I'm just
correct.
like, the fuck are you doing, bro? So, uh, this is where we leave Elm and Ione for now. They come back in later, but I think it's important for us to switch to our Ravyn nightmare and eventually Elspeth perspective. Before we do that, was there anything that stuck out to you about the Elm and Ione stuff that we didn't go over, or did we cover it?
I mean, just that I love them, but we went over that in depth.
You're like, I don't know if I've said it enough, but I do love them.
Yeah.
I also do too. I think they're a little saucier. I think they're a little. I like them. I mean, don't get me
Hmm.
wrong. I like Elspeth and Ravyn too, but they're
But
Elton.
this book definitely, I feel like, leaned into the Elm and Ione
Mm-hmm.
relationship more,
Oh
and
yeah.
I was here for it.
Oh yeah. Same. Well, and because Elspeth spends most of the book as the nightmare, so it's like there's very little. There's so much that develops with Ravyn and Elspeth that don't have to do with Ravyn and Elspeth's relationship. It's a
Yes.
lot to do with other circumstances,
Hmm.
which leads us to Ravyn and Nightmare and Elspeth. Their trajectory, because you might be thinking, oh my god, so much shit's been happening, but there's a whole other thing happening over there, over
There's a whole
yonder.
separate plot.
Yeah, a whole separate plot unfolding that we're going to get into. So Ravyn starts off this book in Stone Castle. He's kind of going back and forth between Stone and Yew Castle. And he starts digging into the Shepherd King's history, because now that Elspeth is the nightmare, or the nightmare is holding her captive, or whatever, however he chooses to think about it, he wants to know, like, how do I get to this Shepherd King? How do I work this out? Because he's adamant that he's going to get Elspeth back. Even when other people doubt that heavily, he's like, no, there's no other option. And so Ravyn goes to the Shepherd King's grave, which is at Yew. And he finds his bones along with his sword, and he eventually gives the sword to Nightmare. But it starts this trajectory where he's trying to dig up information so that he can better understand how to help Elspeth. And what's super interesting is, as he's digging, he's using the mirror card to make himself invisible. And the effect of the mirror card when you use it too long is that you see people from across the veil, that you see people who have died, who have passed on beyond the veil. And so he sees a girl who is behind the veil, and at first he doesn't know who it is, but we figure out pretty quickly, and he figures out that it's Tilly, the Shepherd King's youngest daughter. And she tells Ravyn that she and her siblings and their mother are waiting for the Shepherd King to come be with them. And she tells them, or tells Ravyn, that the first Rowan king, Brutus Rowan, was the one to have killed them all, and that Tilly was the first of the children to die. And this becomes, like, we find more and more about this. I like the imagery of, like, the Shepherd King. You see this image of him carrying her dead body. It's like so sad to me. It just like
Hmm.
got me right in the heart. And so Ravyn leaves. Now that he's got some information, he leaves Yew Castle and he goes to Stone to retrieve the nightmare from the dungeon, because first the nightmare has to face an inquisition with the king, and and then he's hoping to go get the twin elders. And so Ravyn's really struggling, and he struggles throughout his narrative because it's Elspeth's body, but it's not her. He's assured by the nightmare that there's a dark place inside their collective mind, that Elspeth is resting, that she's in the background, but the nightmare won't let him talk to her. So he's really having to interact with her body and what looks to be her, and reminded of her all the time, even though it's the nightmare's voice that's coming out of her mouth. It's his eyes that are flashing behind hers. And when they go in front of the king for the Inquisition, the nightmare affirms that he will help them find the Twin Alders card, and lets them know that he's really the only one that can do it. He's the only one who knows where the Twin Alders card is. So they've got to keep him alive so that they can do that. Then Ravyn, Elm, Ione, Eric Spindle, Taryn Hawthorne are all called in front of the king. And Eric, Taryn, and Ione are tested under the chalice. This was that like freak out moment that I was talking about. I kind of left a couple of the details out so that we could fill in what would be important for this timeline. And because all hell breaks loose, Tarn says something that incites the king, which was prompted by Elm using the scythe card. Eric has his titty attack, as I mentioned. Ione gets the slash across her palm. They're all subdued when Elm freezes the room. But the king is furious. And he's like, he's kind of done with the shit. He's like, this was a whole fucking circus. And I there's no more arguments. There's no more shit to be had about this. Ravyn, you can go with Elspeth, because the king thinks it's Elspeth. He doesn't quite understand that the nightmare's living in there. So he's like, you can go with Elspeth to retrieve the Twin Elders card. He says, also, you could bring Emery, who's Ravyn's brother and who's degenerating from his magic, back to Yew Castle so he could be more comfortable. And he decides that, well, I'll get into that, but he makes some limitations on who Ravyn could take with him and not onto this quest. So Ravyn picks up Emery and he's like, we're going back to Yew Castle. But what's interesting is Emery accidentally touches Ravyn, and he tells Ravyn that he is three things. He is Destrier, Highwayman, and something else. There's another name that he goes by, but it's very vague. And it comes back later what his real name is.
Does.
Tricky. But we at the time don't know. And Ravyn doesn't quite know. He's like, and
dumb boy. And I love how much the nightmare tells him that he thinks he's dumb.
He's like,
and I'm like, you're not wrong.
He's like, you're the stupidest you I've met in a couple hundred years. And Ravyn's like, fuck you, guy. And so he takes Emery back to Yew Castle, but then he has to come back to the stone castle. And he's like, listen, I want to take Elm with me. And the king is like, absolutely fucking not. My heir, Hoth, is now incommunicado. And I only have one other son. Yeah. He's not okay. And I only have one other son. So I'm keeping the other one. But you can take, one of my destriers, Gorse. You can have him, and he's totally going to be a spy for the king. And then Ravyn goes, okay, fine. But I also want to take Jesper, my sister, because somebody's got to be looking out for me. Fuck all knows that it's not going to be the nightmare, and it certainly is not going to be Gorse. I need somebody on Team Ravyn. And the king is like, yeah, fine, whatever. I don't care as long as it's not Elm. And so Ravyn goes to the nightmare. It's like, time to go on a quest. And the nightmare's like wiping his face, like doing one of these. He's like, all right, by about damn time. And they go to Yew Castle once again. The first part of the book for Ravyn is just like, stone, you, stone.
Seriously.
You. He's just
like,
running
can we go
back
now?
and forth. Can we?
Yeah.
Can we set out on the magical quest now? They check on Emery. He's doing better. And they pick up two of Ravyn's other highwaymen named Peter and Wick. And they go off. So it's Nightmare, Ravyn, Gorse, Peter, Wick, and Jesper. That's quest team. I kept calling them like Team Quest or Quest Team. And they set out on their trek. And like any good fairy tale, they come across some magical obstacles. The first being a lake. And in order to get across the lake, they have to spill a drop of their blood, and then they have to swim across it. But if you're thinking, like, is this like a normal lake swim? Absolutely not. It's very difficult. There are figures in the water that are trying to grasp at them and like drag them under. There's some hullabaloo and struggle with it. Ultimately, everybody makes it across, but Peter gets really injured, and they discover that the lake water is poisonous. So as soon as Peter's blood gets exposed to the lake water, his leg starts to like putrefy in front of them, and everyone's like, what do we do? And the nightmare says, hey, I know a secret, and it's that the maiden card actually has healing powers, which we've learned a lot about that already. But
I also love at this point, like the nightmare. I don't know if in this moment you are quite as clear as to why he's so distracted, but Raven's describing it as like he's off in fucking La La Land, and we're trying to decide, like, do we need to cut his leg off? Like, what are we doing? And I'm like, dude, can you help us? And he's like, oh, give him the freaking maiden card. Like he's just like so like, oh my god, you idiots, like just figure it out. Like so unbothered.
Yes. And that's I think I like that you highlight the reason why he's spacing out is because he can't find Elspeth. So the nightmare's trying to find Elspeth in his own head, and he's like, Elspeth, where are you? Peter's leg's about to fall off. They're like, nightmare, what do we do? And he's like, Elspeth. And finally, as you say, he's like, idiots, maiden card. And also because Raven's rushing to get to the maiden card, he throws his nightmare and mirror card on the ground, and Gorse immediately sees it with his little eyeballs and is like, ooh, that's some information the king would like. And so Gorse ditches them immediately to rat all of them out. And
I'm pretty sure the nightmare was like, oh yeah, he left. And they're all like, wait, what?
They're like, you didn't want to do anything about that?
He's like, blah, blah,
what
blah.
are we? He's like, neither here nor there. Yeah, so Gorse is a real narc, and the nightmare wasn't paying attention, and here we are.
And he does make this little cheeky comment where he's like, ugh, one less meat suit.
God. One less sack of flesh we have to drag around. Like, Jesus Christ. Nightmare really once he got control, he really got saucy with it.
I loved it.
Yeah, I did too. He was very much like a sauceman. He was just slinging insults and quips left and right.
All well deserved.
Oh, for sure. Although by the end, he's like a grumpy dad. He actually really loves all of them. So,
yeah, it is true.
We have to. So Ravyn figures out that Nightmare can't find Elspeth, and they're kind of freaking out about it. He's like, can you stop being annoying? Like, I'm trying to find her. You're being annoying about it. I'm trying. And eventually Taxus, aka the Nightmare, calls to her with that riddle, and she answers. She says she wants to join the party, and then she does. So now it's interesting because you're looking, it's through one body, but Nightmare and Elspeth are both in there, and they're both vying for kind of control, attention, that kind of thing. And she immediately wants to talk to Ravyn, but the Nightmare's like, no, we're not doing that. Finally, he lets them talk for a quick hot second, and they're having a very emotional moment where they're apologizing to one another, and they're like, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. You don't need to be sorry. I need to be sorry. No, I need to be sorry. And they're so caught up in this whole moment that people jump them from somewhere with this like sleeping smoke, and the last thing the Nightmare thinks before he's knocked out is like, I could have seen this coming if we weren't doing this emotional bullshit. Like,
yeah,
and then
stupid children.
he's like, if we weren't getting caught up in all this, this could have been avoided. And while he's knocked out, Elspeth again is thrown into the nightmare's memory. Anytime he's not conscious or his consciousness is a little like slippery, she gets into his subconscious. I think she never says the word subconscious, but that's what it feels like to me. And we see that in Taxus's human lifetime, that his power is talking to the trees, and that's his magic. And he's getting direction from the trees to start making these Providence cards. And he starts with the black horse, and he goes all the way through to the nightmare. And you could see that it starts innocently enough. He's like, I just want to make sure that the people of Blunder are safe, and like he has good intentions when it starts. But he unravels over time, because each time he makes these cards, he gives up a part of himself. And over time, he loses sight of every part of his life that was actually important. His wife, his children, his best friend, Brutus Rowan, his kingdom. And the trees had warned him of this eventuality, but he didn't track it. Also, they spoke in like their riddle speak. So there was one quote that I thought was very telling. It's on page 203, where it says, "The last to bend, for magic does twist. You'll lose your old self like getting lost in a mist. The spirit will guide you, but she keeps a long score. She'll grant what you ask, but you'll always want more." So they're saying in their little riddle talk, you're going to get addicted to this, and it's not going to be good for you. And he doesn't take that warning, and he just keeps making them, getting loster and loster. And Brutus Rowan, not only his best friend, but his brother-in-law. Brutus Rowan marries his sister Eris. And so now you start to put together, like, it was a Rowan that killed him. So like this betrayal goes fucking deep.
Yeah.
And before you could get into the whole history, they wake up again. And they're in a hideout. They're being kept captive in a hideout for people who were infected, and all of sort of Blunder's cast-outs. They've been hiding in this kind of sanctuary for people who were infected. And all of the team, all of the quest squad, they're tied to these poles. And the leaders of the people who have captured them are Otho and Harris. They're two sisters who are infected and have magic themselves, and they use a magical smoke to make Ravyn, Jesper, and Gorse, who they also captured, that little fucking sneak. They captured him as he was running away. They make the three of them enraged, and they say awful things to each other. And Ravyn ends up killing Gorse. He like squeezes his windpipe until he crushes it, and Gorse is dead. Good, yeah. We didn't need him. Ravyn feels bad about it. Yeah, I don't think you should feel that bad. But ultimately, who should come out of the woodwork but Opal Hawthorne, who's Elspeth's aunt and Ione's mother. And she's like, whoa. These are good people. What are we doing out here? And in the hullabaloo of all that, they use a stowed knife that Peter's got in his boot, and they free themselves, and they subdue the sisters, and they run away. It was crazy.
And Opal being there, it again, breadcrumb trails of like, you learn in the beginning that, Jesper goes to the family, like once all of the initial drama with Elspeth and the nightmare happen and Hoth gets injured, Jesper goes and warns them, so they flee into the night. And then in the first book, I think more so, but they talk about it a little bit in the second book, how like the Yu family and like Ravyn is, captain of the Destriers, but also like secretly gets people to safety and doesn't actually kill them. And so now you're finding out like, oh, these are the people that he's saved. And they're like, yeah, bullshit. And he's like, no, really, we've been trying to save you, but they're not buying it. But it was, again, just like, and then Opal ends up there because that's where the people go when they're trying to like not be murdered. And it was just like another like full circle moment where I was like, this was so well thought out, and
Yes.
I would never have expected that to have happened. And so I just really appreciated that.
Yes, I agree. It was a masterful sort of like tying of a bow that really was started in the first book,
Yeah.
early in the first book, like tied to now. I thought it was great.
Mm-hmm.
And so after they go through that ordeal, Gorse is dead. And I believe before they get there that Wick also dies before they get to the
Yeah.
point I'm about to say. So Peter's brother Wick is, I think, takes like a knife through the eye or something. It's
When they
horrible.
were being kidnapped by these
Yeah,
lovely women, he
by
did
these
indeed
ladies.
succumb to an arrow.
It's always a knife or an arrow or a
Which
sword.
I will say, Wick and
Mm,
Peter were kind of like insignificant characters that got added in. So it definitely sucked.
hmm
And I was like,
And
at this
yeah,
moment in the book, I was like, and then the
yeah.
nightmare makes a comment of like, we could have used that.
Yeah, I didn't and I think that was purposeful. Like I don't think we were supposed to feel like devastated by Wick's death. Of course, like we had met the brothers and had seen them interact on some level, so you feel bad for Peter, but like que
Yeah.
sera, you go on quest and sometimes you don't come back from the
Yeah.
quest. So the nightmare then leads them to a wall of alders, like alder trees. And behind those, that is where the twin alders are, the big daddy alders. And so Nightmare kind of casts a ring of aspens to protect them for the night. They're like, we need to sleep at least a little bit before we go in there and start doing all this shit.
He's like, I'll call my trees.
Yeah, he's like, trees, oh trees, do set up camp. And the trees
Real
all
Lorax like.
yeah. Real like Ent from the Lord of the Rings, fill in the Groot, fill in the gap of whatever sort of tree creature fits the bill for you. And as they're sitting in this like circle of aspens, the nightmare kind of is saying out loud what Elspeth is shouting into his mind a little bit more. And by the end of the night, he lets Ravyn and Jesper talk to Elspeth using the nightmare card. I think his will for like keeping them apart is kind of deteriorating. He's like, fucking fine.
And I think he was low key just trying to like amp him up because he's like, this is about to get real effed up.
Yeah.
And so I guess if there's a part of me that can be nice to you now before you realize what the heck is about to happen, because I know and you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit's about to get fucked up and you're not gonna like what happens next.
Yeah.
And so the nightmare falls asleep, and again it propels Elspeth into his memories. Every time his consciousness is kind of not there to protect the memories, they come out. And so we see we come back to Taxus's story. He's made the Providence card, and the last one is the twin alders. But after he casts for the twin alders, he can no longer use any of them, which becomes a real problem for him because he'd become addicted to using the cards, touching the cards, always having the cards. And his sister Eris and his kids and Brutus, they all try to talk to him. They're like, all right, join us, like come back to us. You've done everything you need to do. Like this is too much. It's too much. Like you need to get involved in your life. And it falls on deaf ears. He's kind of absorbed in the cards and in the magic. He's lost in the sauce. And we also learn in the background that Brutus has a bit of a sadistic side, that he's been torturing criminals or people who have the infection with a scythe card. We see that some things happen in Brutus's timeline that make him a more sympathetic character, but he still is, he's got this air of darkness about him, even in the best of time. And then it zooms kind of forward in time, and Taxus wants to go speak to the spirit of the wood, and he agrees to do it with Eris. Eris catches him going into the wood, and she's like, come on, take me with you. I'll go with you. We'll go into the wood together. And he was like, all right, we'll go into the wood together. And so they step into the mist, and it overtakes her and kills her. And that you get more details about what exactly happened in there, but at this point you just know that it kills her. And you can see now kind of the close ties that the nightmare not only has on a magical level, but like what has happened in the mist with his own members of his family. So they wake up and the nightmare brings them, he like clears the aspens. He's like, all right, aspens, you protected us for the night. Thank you so much. Get the fuck out of here. And he brings them to the wall of alders that's blocking the spirit of the wood. And the nightmare cuts open his hand and he places it on one of the alders and it opens up a hole in the trees. And then the nightmare chooses this moment to reveal that either Peter or Jesper will need to get rid of their charms, get infected, and lead them to the spirit of the wood. Somebody's got to die, become infected and die in order for this to work. And Elspeth and Ravyn are furious. Naturally, they're like, "Why the fuck didn't you say anything?" And Nightmare's like, "Well, we had Gorse. I thought Gorse would be the guy, but we lost him, and now we're here." And so they flip a coin to see who will go in. And Ravyn tries to say, he's like, it's heads. Peter should go in there. And Jesper's like, "Bitch, I know you're lying. I could tell you're lying." She takes her charm, she throws it, and she falls under the spirit's thrall. And she sprints into the hole in between the alders. And Ravyn and Nightmare are like, fuck. And they get shoved through the alders, and Peter is closed out. So he tries to kind of get in there. He gets closed out and is left on the outside. And so they have no other option than to just chase after her. And while they're chasing after her, they're being attacked by trees and thorns and animals. And she's like chanting and cackling about the spirit of the wood. Like it's a very scary, haunting visage of like, you're just getting barrage of dark wooded things as this woman is like running and cackling. It's like, ooh, it's spooky.
It was.
Yeah.
Like very like adrenaline moment of like, if there's going to be a part of the book that you read extremely fast to get through, it's going to be that.
Yes. And what was cool reading it the second time was I could like slow down and like really get the visage. The first time I read it, I was like, I was just like, what's gonna happen? It was crazy. And so they like are running through the woods, and then they come to this like almost like cliff's edge, or it's like a steep hill. And Nightmare like runs into Ravyn, or Ravyn runs into Nightmare, and Nightmare's like, "You fucking idiot!" And they tumble over the edge of the hill, and they land in a pit that is covered with rotting corpses and bones. Like all of a sudden, their knees are like crunching the skulls of dead people,
and Jesper's just like casually climbing up the other side, like, "Come on, boys!"
Scrabbling up the other side, still laughing, and like, "Can't you hear the spirit?" Like, it's like, oh my god, it's horrific. But the image, and on the sort of like top of this hill, the twin alders sit. It's like the two, one black, one white, the twin alders, and through the gate that's revealed between the two alders, that's where you find the spirit of the wood. And the twin alders reveal that the rot feeds the alders and the mist, that they need the bodies of the people to feed this rot, and in turn the rot feeds the mist. And it's this like cyclical, fucked up cycle of what the mist does for the bodies and the bodies for the mist and all that. And through the gap in the twin alders, they can see a pale stretch of beach. And I think it's interesting that to talk to the spirit of the wood, there's a pale beach, and the space in the Shepherd King's mind is a black, dark beach. Like, I wondered if it was like him creating a space in his mind that was a mirror of this place. And when they see this, they see the spirit kind of, or they see this beach where they can talk to the spirit. But the twin elders say they have to leave Jesper. And Ravyn and Elspeth are still raging about that. They're like, we're not leaving her. And Nightmare's like, what the fuck do you want me to do? And I loved this moment from Elspeth. She like yells into her own mind. She's like, you're the fucking Nightmare. Figure it out. You're like, your existence has defied every fucking expectation. Figure it out.
And he's like, okay, fine.
Yeah, he gets an attitude. He's like, I guess. And so he shoves Ravyn through the gap. He grabs Jesper, and Ravyn pulls the Nightmare and Jesper through the closing hole, and they just make it. And Jesper's not doing well, but she's still alive, and they're holding on. And so Ravyn and Nightmare speak with the spirit of the wood. And she looks kind of like the Nightmare, but she has silver eyes and no pupils. This was another cool thing that I thought was so interesting, that the Nightmare like was fashioned after the image of the spirit of the wood. Like it felt there was a duality there that I felt was so cool. I loved that. And so Ravyn has to use the Twin Elders card to speak to the spirit, but the price is that if he stays too long, he'll lose sense of time. And he agrees, and he leaves the Nightmare and Jesper on the shore.
And I also, there's some back and forth, some dialogue that happens at this point, and you find out that the Nightmare and Elspeth both kind of find out that Ravyn's plan this whole time, and I love that the spirit of the wood was like, basically like, anything you want to tell them.
Oh God, what a shit stir. Like, just like stir in the pot.
Yes,
bitch.
And his plan this whole time, because he's infected and you need infected blood to unite the card. The king wants to use Emery. The Nightmare agrees to use Elspeth. But Ravyn's like, screw all of you. I'm just going to sacrifice myself so I can save all of you. And I'm like, Ravyn, come on, dude. Like,
Ravyn, baby.
You can't save everyone. And also, like, you've been plotting this whole time because you just love your brother so much.
Oh my God. And like, and just like, I feel in so many romantasy books, romantic love is so prized and so honored and so talked about, that when I see depictions of like familial love or friend love that like drives a person to self-sacrifice, I just think that's so telling of a character, that you would be willing to sacrifice yourself for your sibling.
Yeah. And even just like the everything going on with Jesper, and the way that even like when she was about to run into the alder trees and she had said like, are you behind me? And he's like, I'm always behind you. Like, and I was just like, what a good big brother.
Oh my God. It's it like, I'm a big sister, and so it just like it is very, when they say that to each other, like, I'm behind you always, like, that's such a like, I don't know, feels very sibling-y. So the spirit and Ravyn start talking, and the spirit kind of is like, might I offer you something that will mean that you don't destroy the Providence cards? What if I offer to save everybody you love from peril, but you leave the Twin Alders with me? And he's like, tempting, but no, I think ultimately, with the mist killing everything and everybody, doesn't matter if the people I know are safe. Like, what if Elspeth and I have kids, and like, what's going to happen to them? And then she offers him the throne of Blunder. She says, I can make you king. Why, you could have all the power in Blunder. And the spirit obviously doesn't know him that well, because he's like, that's not the offer that you think it is. And he says no to both, and he says that he's going to leave with the card or not at all. And she counters and says that, okay, I will let you leave with the card, but you have to tell me your true name. You're known by two names, Destrier and Highwayman, but there's a third name that you're known by. And then he counters her counter, and he says, all right, I'll play by your game, but you need to give me 2 hints to help me understand what this means. And she agrees, and she shows him the memories of what happened to the Shepherd King and his children.
And this was the only part in the plot where I was like, she just like was like, I'll let you leave with it, but you have to play my game. You have to guess, like, you have to tell me your true name. And then was basically like, here's an image that shows you exactly what your true name is. And I was like, you didn't really make him work that hard for it. Like,
No.
you were trying to trick him out of taking the card, and then you were like, okay, basically you can just have it. Like, I was a little surprised
yeah.
that the images she showed him like laid it out as clearly. That was the only moment where I was like, why did she make that so obtainable? Like, she made it very obvious.
I almost wonder if it felt more obvious to us because we were seeing the memories that Elspeth was seeing. Like, I don't think Ravyn was privy to much of what Elspeth was experiencing. Like, they hadn't talked about it, or so I think in some ways it was trickier for him to figure out than it was for us. Like,
which, now that you mention that, the way that this book is written, I feel like that's a common theme. So that probably is a good point.
And I wonder too if the author wanted us as readers to be like, come on, like by this point we're supposed to know. And we're like, Ravyn, honey, I need you to use your thinking cap right now because I know what it is. I remember even the first time reading it that I knew by this point that Bennett and Ravyn were somehow connected. And I was like, put it together. So whether or not her games are warranted, she shows him the memories of sort of the end of the Shepherd King's life. And what happens is Taxus and Eris go into the wood, and they do very much like Ravyn and Jesper are now doing. And they talk about the duality of that, the like repetition of the siblings and one of the siblings being sacrificed to the wood. And he tries to carry Eris's dead body back to Castle U, but he's too weak and he can't do it. So he has to leave her in the wood, which is something that really leaves him ridden with guilt after this whole thing goes down. And so she dies in the wood, and he is returned from their very the sort of like wayward the terrible adventure they'd just had. And he's sitting in the banquet hall of his castle, and Brutus Rowan is standing behind him. Now remember, Eris was married to Brutus, so there's a level of, I think, betrayal here that Brutus feels that we can now empathize with. We're like, oh, okay, maybe understand why you were pissed. And he stabs Taxus right in his own hall, and Taxus tries to run with his children. And there's an image of him carrying Tilly, who is already dead, in his arms and leading his other children to the safety. I don't know if they were going to the wood or to the stone chamber. He was trying to lead them to safety. And what's more frightening is the Shepherd King can no longer use the cards, so he has no card magic to protect him. His wife is already dead. And so using the Scythe and the Black Horse cards, Brutus kills Taxus and all of his children except for his son Bennett, who has gray eyes and dark hair and a hawkish nose. And so Bennett survives, because what we learn about Bennett's power is he is impervious to the cards and he can destroy them. He goes into hiding. He leaves and is cast out from the castle. He can't return to society, really, because, he'll get killed. He goes into hiding. He marries. He has a whole other life, and looks very much like somebody we already know. And so Ravyn realizes what his third name is. It's Taxus. That his last name and the U family actually comes from the line of Taxus, and he is a descendant of the Shepherd King. Like fireworks, like it's all fucking coming together now. It was, I don't know how, even though I knew there was parts of this I knew, watching the death of the shepherd, it just blew my mind.
Yeah. That the way that that image was created of like Ravyn uncovering this information and just like the memory that he's witnessing, like I knew Bennett was a part of this and was going to relate back to Ravyn, but I don't
Mhm.
think I quite knew that it was going to be like, no, Ravyn and Taxus are related.
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. So after he figures it out, he says his third name, and Ravyn comes out with the twin alders cards, and a couple of important conversations unfold from there. The Nightmare and Elspeth talk in their own shared mind space, and she realizes that Ravyn is related to the Nightmare or the Shepherd King, and she asks the Nightmare, and she says, "Okay, enough of your shit. No more riddles. No more lies. Be honest. What do you want? What do you want from this whole thing?" And he, in a rare show of just vulnerability and honesty, says that he wants to leave Blunder better than how it was when he inherited the throne or had inherited the crown. And I think that was what he wanted at 17. Like, there was a kernel of him that just wanted to make things better, and had lost himself along the way. And so after that conversation unfolds, Ravyn and the Nightmare also talk. And the Nightmare tells Ravyn of his plan. Not that Ravyn should be king, because that was Ravyn's worry. That Nightmare was trying to set him up to be king, and Ravyn was like, I don't fucking want to be king. And I thought it was so cool. The Nightmare basically was like, no, Ravyn, you and I are Blunder's reckoning. Their destruction and rebirth. We need someone who's not Rowan, who's not you, who's not any thing in categories that we already have. We need the King of the Elms. We need Elm to be king. And that's a revelation to Ravyn, who thinks that the Nightmare, I don't know if Ravyn really tracked that the Nightmare had altruistic ends. And so they're having these conversations, and he's still using the twin alders. Like, he's just like, la la la, still going, and everyone realizes it, and they're like, shit, time's been passing, we've been here chatting like a bunch of jagaloons. So he taps the card 3 times, and they stop the use of the twin alders. They have been in the Alderwood for 24 days. They have lost a lot of time, and solstice is almost upon them. And the solstice is the only time that the deck can be united and destroyed. So they haul back out of the wood. They go back by the secret, infected people place. They go back by the alders. They go back by the lake. And the whole time, Nightmare carries Jesper, who's alive but struggling, really struggling. And people keep offering to carry her, and he's like, no, I couldn't carry Eris out of this wood. I'm fucking carrying Jesper out of this damn wood. Which again struck me in the heart. Like,
yeah, absolutely,
nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
And then they run into Ione and Peter. Ione has been trying to find them, tracing their steps. It's been 24 days. She got back to Iykyk, and then she's been running around trying to find them. She has the scythe card that Elm gave her. And she found her mother and her brothers. She's been making maneuvers. Peter's like, I've been trying to wait out here for you all. And they all head back to Elm Castle. Or no, not Elm, Iykyk, to unite the deck. While they've been doing this, Elm the idiot has been held in the dungeons because he had to have a face-off with Hoth. He's been in the dungeons with Tarn and Eric Spindle. They're questioning him, they're beating him, they're torturing him. He's in and out of consciousness. And at Solstice, Hoth finally drags him up out of the dungeon, and they're like, we're headed to Iykyk. And it's like everybody's descending upon Iykyk to wait for Ravyn and Elspeth / the Nightmare to emerge.
Yeah, and Hoth's like, I'm gonna kill them all. And Nightmare's like, no, I'm gonna kill them all. And it's like, okay, but who's gonna win? And there is a point where it's like, because the Nightmare and the quest team does not know what's been happening on the other side, it does feel very intense of like, they don't know that, like, they're sitting ducks, basically, like what they're walking back
Mm-hmm.
into. And there's like, I felt like panicky at a certain
Mm-hmm.
point of like, oh no, but they're waiting for you. They figured it out.
Yep. And there was the one thing that really like made me feel better, because I felt the same way. I felt very panicky. Nightmare comes up upon you, Castle, and he could tell it's already burning. And he's like, what a fucking night to come back here and do this all over again. And I was like, shit, the Nightmare's got some shit up his sleeve. Like, he's not as nervous as I am right now. So maybe he's got something for us. And he certainly did. But he was like,
Certainly.
night of all nights, I come back to this fucking place and it's burning.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. So Hoth questions the Yu family with the chalice, and this is Emery, Ravyn's parents. They're like trusty servants and people, and they're forced to tell him about the cards that are hidden in the stone chamber. They've been hiding whatever Providence cards they have to unite the deck within that stone chamber, and about the whole quest to unite the deck and push back the mist and all that. So now Hoth has a bunch of the cards, which again frightens me to no end. Like, I'm like, the more cards this asshole has, the worse. The worse this gets. And he threatens to use. But what's interesting is Emery sort of grabs onto Hoth, and he's like, listen here, asshole. You're gonna lose, and Elm is gonna be king. And it spooks Hoth, because it's like Emery degenerating in his like prophecy speak. And ultimately, Emery's right. Like, he says it and it does come to pass, but
And he's been right every time.
He has from day one, has been from the first time he was creepy to Elspeth at that party and grabbed her arm. He's been right. And so as Ravyn and crew come upon the castle, they see it's burning. And again, the Nightmare's like, let's get in here. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad somebody's confident, because it ain't me. And we don't know the plan as the reader. Like, the Nightmare goes up to Ravyn's like, will you listen to me for 5 fucking seconds and I'll tell you what the plan is? And Ravyn's like, okay. And we're like, okay. And then we don't hear the plan. So we're like, all right, somebody knows the plan. First, Ione comes out of the woods with the Twin Alders card, the maiden, and the scythe, and she's like, look what I have, boys. And I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we drawing? Like, why do you have the most important card in your hand and you're like just walking out of the I was stressed the whole
I didn't
the whole
like
time.
that. I didn't like that.
I didn't like that one bit. But she's like, come and get me. And so a bunch of the Destriers are like, grab the girl. And so she runs off into the woods. The Destriers go after her. Poor Elminturn and Eric, who have been tortured to Kingdom Come and back, are like hobbling after them, like, wait for me. And they disappear into the woods. The Nightmare, meantime, is keeping Hoth pretty busy. He's called in some trees, and the trees are just like smacking him around a little bit. They're surrounding him and like fucking with him,
which I loved.
Oh, I did too. I just like I pictured like the tree version of like a backhand slap, just like
yes,
getting all confuzzled in the trees. And while he's doing that, he like goes to the Yu family. He's like, you need to get the fuck out of here. Get in your castle. Yeah. Exit stage left. And Ione's away. So once that has transpired, the Nightmare's like, okay, I don't need to distract Hoth anymore. Ravyn, you go over there and you fight Hoth. You subdue him. You take all his cards. All that good stuff. Well, things do not go to plan, because Hoth stabs Ravyn really grievously. He takes the cards from Ravyn and uses the mirror to make himself invisible and goes after the others. I got so scared.
Because I was like, nobody knows what's happening, because they're all off doing their own part of the plan. Nobody has eyes on Ravyn, so they don't, like, because historically speaking, Ravyn always has one up on Hoth. And so it didn't cross anybody's mind that maybe something bad would happen. And then it
literally
did.
Yeah, like Ravyn's bleeding out in the snow and nobody can see Hoth because he's got the mirror card. I was in a tizzy at this point. The The Nightmare and Ione work together to take out the Destriers who pursued her. Elm, Tern, and Eric make their way over to them, and they're all like, "What's going on?" And also, we're hobbling. So Nightmare and Ione kill all the Destriers, and they heal Elm, Tern, and Eric with the maiden card. They're like, "All right, everybody touch your maiden card, get all healed up." And they're okay now. They're not, they've been in the dungeon a long time, but physically they're fine. And all of a sudden, Nightmare and Elspeth, sharing their mind space, realize that they don't know where Ravyn is. And they're like, fuck, we need to find Ravyn. They find him in the fucking snow, bleeding out. Oh my god. And Elspeth is like mega worried, obviously, because it's her lover. And Ravyn's like, listen, you held out for 10 minutes under Hoth's torture for me to get up those stairs. He can't let this go. I can hold on for 10 minutes from dying. He literally says 10 minutes. He's gonna count it out. I won't die for the next 10 minutes. That's a pretty bold statement. Pretty specific. I think he's trying to make a joke, but they're like, all right, no dying for the next 10 minutes. Nightmare bounds after Hoth, and because the Nightmare can see the cards, it doesn't matter that Hoth's invisible. He knows where Hoth is. He captures him with the trees. He uses his tree magic, wraps the branches around his limbs,
he
and
sure
brings
does.
Oh yeah, he was like, bitch, and brings him to the stone chamber where they kept all the cards and where the Shepherd King was buried. It's all coming back. It's all coming full circle now. All the Providence cards are spilled upon the stone table, and the Nightmare turns to Ione and Elm, who are there, because they have the Twin Alders and the Maiden and the Scythe, and they all bring it together. The Nightmare's like, listen, I have to go help Ravyn. Can you two motherfuckers finish this job? And they're like, aye, Captain. And so Nightmare runs off. Ione and Elm rip Hoth's charm off, and now he's infected. And they stab him through because they need infected blood to spill over these cards to unite the deck. Now his infected blood spills over the 12 cards, and the spirit claims Hoth, one last body to rot in the mist, one last price for all this craziness. And he runs into the forest under her thrall, and Elm is left with one new card, the Shepherd. And this card can heal people of their infection and their magic if they would like or need it to. Pew, pew, pew. Like,
loved it. Absolutely loved it. And
yeah.
I just think it is such a fun full circle moment to envision Hoth just being like, I'm coming, and like running into the woods. And it's like, as you should.
What an appropriate undignified ending for you. Like cackling into the woods.
And now the spirit of the wood can have her feast.
Uh-huh. There she goes. One last feast for you, girl. I also love that it was Elm that killed him. Elm and Ione together. They both, like, they hold the sword and they kill him together.
Mm-hmm.
And that it wasn't Ravyn and it wasn't the Nightmare. Like, I think the Nightmare was right. Like, Ravyn, you and I are the reckoning. We are the destruction. Elm is the new beginning. And it's so apropos that Elm should have the last Providence card that's made.
Yeah, I just loved that.
Oh, I did too. I was cheering and chanting and also like crapping my pants because where the hell is Ravyn and how's he doing?
Yeah, and also what's up with that?
Yeah. And we're going to tell you what's up with that. So the U's drag Ravyn. They find him eventually and they drag him into U Castle and they're like, what do we do? What do we do? And Nightmare runs up and he's like, haven't you ever dressed a battle wound before? And he happens to know, fun fact, that Jesper, like Tilly, has healing magic. Even though she and nobody else understand or know that, he knows that she has it and has known. And so he's like, all right, girl, I'm going to show you how to do your healing shit with the magic and the whatnot. And so she puts hands on Ravyn and she heals him. And it takes a couple of days for Ravyn to wake up, but he eventually does. And he and his siblings are reunited. And Emery is cured because of the new Shepherd card. And there's such like a sibling moment that unfolds where they're all like, hey brother, you're up, what's up man, and he's like, you motherfuckers. Like they like a lot of jabbing of ribs. But at the very end of the book, after they have their sibling moment, Nightmare comes and he wants to talk to Ravyn. And he says, they go down to the stone chamber, and he says, Elspeth can come back, but only if Ravyn destroys the Nightmare card and sends Taxis across the veil. There's a moment where like Ravyn's like, you can't destroy a Providence card. He's like, idiot, have you learned nothing? Bennett could destroy them. You're a prodigy of Bennett, or you're not progeny of Bennett. You have the power to destroy the cards. That's a fucking lie. But as soon as you destroy the card, I will be gone forever. Ravyn says, all right, you two have 10 minutes, again with the 10 minutes, to say goodbye. And they spend their last few minutes together connecting and saying farewell. And at the very end, she tells him the story of the two of them. And she struggles to do it, and she starts it, and she stops because she can't. She's so emotional about it. And the king's like, "Come on, let's do this together, one more time." And she says, "There once was a girl, clever and good, who tarried in shadow in the depths of the wood. There also was a king, a shepherd by his crook, who reigned over magic and wrote the old book. The two were together, so the two were the same: the girl, the king, and the monster they became." And he destroys the card, and the nightmare is gone. And it's like, I cried the second time reading it. I was so emotional. But in the epilogue, Elm and Ione are getting married. Elm is going to be, or is, the king. She's going to be the queen. Elspeth is back, and she and Ravyn are together. And Ravyn, using the mirror card, can see that Taxis is happy with his kids and his wife beyond the veil. And their great arc and story comes to an end. And that's the Shepherd King series.
And I was nervous as we were approaching the end, because it still felt like I was getting nervous things weren't going to have time to like wrap up. And I was like, is this going to be one of those damn books where there isn't another one written, but it doesn't feel, because sometimes books end intentionally without having like wrapped in a nice bow. And so I really didn't want that to happen. And so I was so happy that like the journey was worth it and everyone ended up happily, because then my mind was at ease after all the turmoil of the second half of this book. Well, the whole book, really.
Yeah, you put me through a lot. And it's time to get a little rest. It's time for the Shepherd King to rest. It's time for them to have some happiness. I'm also a proponent. I understand that it can be like a great emotional and artistic choice that stories don't end happily. Like, I can understand when people are like, well, it leaves you feeling whatever. It's the complexity of the real world. And to that I say, if I want real world stories that don't always end happy, I'll be a counselor. I can hear plenty of those stories of traumas that don't get resolved, or and we hope that folks do, and we help folks find closure on things. But like, I hear enough of the real world, I don't need any more. I want a fictitious story with magical powers, and at the end, everybody is happy.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. I want the closure that only fantasy can provide. So
I agree.
I was deeply affected by this book both times I read it. I loved it. Like 10 out of 10 would recommend reading it. Like, if somehow you listen to all of this and you haven't read it, do it. Read it again if it's your first time. I loved it.
Yeah. And it was definitely such a good book to read, even just skim read through a second time. Just as enjoyable.
Yes, agreed. So that is going to wrap our plots and our thoughts. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, we will go over our tee-hee moments and our therapy deep dive. See you in a moment. Bye. All right, everyone, welcome back. We have gone through our plots and our thoughts, our rankings and our ratings, and now it is time for our tee moments. Those moments that made us Twitter-pated, that made us feel a little something, that gave us the sustenance that we needed in the giggles department. So, Becky, what were your tee moments for this book?
So I had quite a few because there was more opportunity for it in this book, but I chose to, pick a couple different emotions. Some were like spicy emotions, some were like I can feel myself smiling as I'm reading it type things. So
Yes.
we floated around a bit, but the first one is on page 52 and it's Elm having one of the moments where he's noticing how he feels about Ion. And he was helping her undress when they got back from their first horse ride. And he says, it was surprisingly heavy, her hair, dense, long enough to wrap around my fist and tug. And I was like,
oh, Elm. You want to pull my hair? That makes me feel
calm down,
things.
buddy. Yeah.
I feel things.
And I feel like he also in that moment was like, wait, whoa,
whoa. Why am I thinking that?
Yeah. So I was like, this is just the start of something new.
I like this.
Yes. And then my next one was I can feel myself smiling because as we know, I really love how rude the nightmare is.
Yes.
And so it was when Ravyn was realizing that Elspeth could now see again, through the nightmare. And Ravyn says to the nightmare, she can see me now. And then Elspeth is saying in their mind, ha, call him what you like, but never mark him as a fool. The nightmare exhaled, but he is a fool, dear one, terribly incessantly stupid. And then she says, take that back. And then he cleared his throat. She says, you're stupid, Ravyn, you. And I was like, I just love it. I just loved it. And that was so funny to me.
By the end, Ravyn knows. Like, Nightmare's like, hey, by the way, Elspeth says you're a poo-poo head. And Ravyn's like, she didn't say that. You said that.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Naturally, the next one is another banter moment between Elm and Ion. And this is when she's still under the effect of the maiden card on page 199. And Elm says to her, you think very highly of yourself, Hawthorne. If you imagine all my comings and goings concern you. A noise hummed in her throat. Maybe not your goings.
Oh, yes.
And I was like,
girl.
you cheeky girl. Because also you clocked that. 100% you did.
all the like full grown women with like 12-year-old humors, like just check a Rooney for that one.
Yeah, I was like, and you're not wrong because he is thinking about you a lot.
Oh, and he's thinking things about things that he wants to do with things.
He is often. Like tugging your hair. And then this one was more of just like a sweet, like made my heart really happy moment and gave me all of the feels. It was on page 248. And yet again, it's between Elm and Ion because Ione, Ion, my brain, it's both. Yeah, you know who I mean. The lovers.
I do. The lovers.
Yes. And so this is when they're at one of the stupid feasts and the theme is that people are dressing up in costume as different cards. And he just realized that the king made her dress up as the nightmare card. And she's trying to play it off like it doesn't bother her, but he's kind of like clocking bullshit. And so he's like, let's get out of here and go to the garden and leave these catty women.
Mm.
And so then it says, adding the slightest pressure, he ran her fingers down his abdomen, wiping the black paint off of her skin. He did the same with her other hand, his clothes absorbing her stain. I'll take you wherever you want to go, Miss Hawthorne.
Oh my God. First of all, you take my hand and you rub it down your abdomen. You could have rubbed it anywhere. You could have taken your arm, your sleeve, but you chose your abdomen. And you'll take me wherever I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's some places I want to go. You should probably know what places I want to go before you offer that to me.
Yes.
Sir.
And it was like a sweet, tender moment, but also like that sexual tension it just never goes away.
Oh my God.
So because I had a feeling that you would maybe choose some of the more explicit moments as well, and I didn't want to double up on those.
Yeah, I'm not going to go through all of mine because like always I have too many. But maybe I'll highlight the top 3 or 4. So I tried to pick stuff that was like across time, that was like at these snippets across the book where you could see their relationship develop. And there was 2 kind of chunks of pages where things really ratcheted up. One was around the 150s, and then the other one was like at the early 300s. And so in those early 150s, there is a part where she's threatening to use the scythe card on him. And he goes, "Then do it," he whispered, gliding a hand up her spine. "Use me. Toy with me. Feel something, Ione." This is where I was like, wait, are we going into a BDSM line here? Like,
with a bunch of consenting adults.
Who's to say? But like, use me, toy with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's so hot to me. Like when he's just like, yeah, use me, do what you want to me.
And she was like, oh, okay.
She was like, I'll take that under advisement. I'll think about that.
Mm-hmm.
So that got me feeling things. This one is a little bit more. Well, I'm trying to decide which. Maybe I'll do both. Yeah, I'll do both. So on page 304, this one's a little bit tenderer, less explicit. And it was when he sort of noticed, I think it was when she stopped using the maiden card, and saw her for her like true face in the first time in the first time. The first time. Oh my God.
There it is.
Oh, light dawns on Marblehead.
Friends.
Yeah. For the first time, I knew, I was like, something's wrong. But he sees her, sort of her true face for the first time. And he says on page 304, there were not enough pages in all the books Elm had read, in all the libraries he'd wandered, in all the notebooks he'd scrawled that could measure, denote, or describe just how beautiful she was. And then he says, there you are. Oh, sir, you're a well-read heir prince. You've had access to a lot of books. You've drawn a lot over the years. And none of that could describe how beautiful. I'm flabbergasted. I'm twittipated. I really enjoy that.
I agree.
Yeah. And then the last one. Okay, I'll go with on page 311. This is leading up to their sex scene. There's a whole. I just put Elm and Ione's whole sex scene as one of them. I didn't even make it a quote. It was just the whole thing. But on page 311, before they fully get to the act, it says, Elm pinned her to the ground and put a knee between her legs, guiding them open, whispering words of adoration into her mouth. Words like warm and divine, and I can't fucking breathe when you look at me, Ione. You can't breathe when you look at me? You think I'm divine?
She's earned this, you know?
Oh, I think this is the bare minimum, period. Like, this is just, if you're not saying these things to me, what even are we doing?
I agree.
You don't think I'm a divine being? You can't, your breath isn't taken away every time you look at me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
And
people
she's
do
like,
better.
I didn't even think you ever even knew me.
He's like, bitch, I've been watching you from
Mm-hmm.
day one.
Yeah. I love it.
So those are some of my teehees. Those are the things that made us Twitter pated. And now it is time to get emotional, to get counselory for our therapy mind deep dive. And we have a couple of things that sort of themes that we've highlighted across time. So I'm going to highlight the theme and then just ask you what your perspective is. So the first thing that really stuck out to me in terms of theme was this dichotomy of emotionlessness and unregulated emotion. And when we follow Ione's trajectory across the books, we see her go from like this full, earnest, free flowing emotion, like a guileless, very almost naive show of emotion, to absolute emotionlessness, or so experiencing a coldness in the realm of emotion. And I think partially is the trauma that comes with Hoth forcing the mating card upon her that causes some of this pendulum swing. But it made me think about how in the counseling space we spend a lot of our times helping people navigate their relationships with emotion. And I think some people tend a little bit more toward that unregulated emotion side. Some people tend toward trying to shove down emotions or not feel them. What do you think are some of the pitfalls of being emotionally unregulated, or the vice versa? Like, what dangers exist in going too far on either side of that spectrum?
I think for me, what stands out with that is on the unregulated side, noticing how impulsive that can be, and that can give people a lot of power over you. And
Mm,
we see it very specifically in Ione's situation, but just in life in general, when people have information about you that is given freely and is given in depth, right? Like you are oversharing, you're over explaining, you're letting them see all of your cards, right? There
mm,
isn't that protective factor and those boundaries in place of, I know how to share a healthy amount, build trust, have a relationship with someone before I'm kind of dumping on them, right? And
mm,
when we are impulsively emotional, like we have to deal with those consequences. And a lot of times, like they're not the most positive. Sometimes it works out for us, but a lot of times, like there's negative consequences to that impulsivity factor. And it's
mm,
like, had I taken some more time to think and process and wait before I reacted, then maybe the outcome would have looked a little bit different. And I think that comes up a lot for people in counseling sessions of like, the way that I acted was unregulated or was impulsive. And now, like, how do I fix it? And so a lot of the work is, how do we learn skills to not be so impulsive, to not be unregulated, so we don't have to do the fixing. We can be proactive about it. And I feel
mm.
like that's really common work that people do in the counseling spaces I've been in.
Yeah, I love that you bring this up. It reminds me, I feel like there is a very popular trend of like, I hate small talk. I hate small talk. Let's just like dive deep. And I always have a reaction to that of like, it's not that I want to always do small talk. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's only so many conversations I can have about the weather before I get bored. But there is a gradual increase in shares of vulnerability. And oftentimes with new people, you have to start small. So sharing small bits of your world, waiting for them to share small bits of their world. And maybe it's not the most vulnerable, deep thing you've ever said or thought, but it's a sort of trade-off. You're testing the nature of the relationship across time. And if you don't ever give that opportunity to do some of that testing, you may be diving way too deep, way too fast. And then you get that like sharing hangover almost of like, I've now said too much, and without that base. So that's, as you were saying that, I'm like, people keep trash talking small talk. I actually don't. I think it's really necessary in order to do that back work like you're talking about.
Well, and once you say something, you can't take it back. And so if you share something too soon or you become too vulnerable with someone and their reaction to it or the way they respond to it is hurtful or it's just not helpful in the way you wanted it to be, they're not supportive, they're not understanding, they now don't like you because of something that you decided to share that maybe wasn't the best timing for, right? Like I can't undo the fact that I shared and was unregulated, right? Like once that's out, it's out. And so
Mm-hmm.
being really intentional about when I want parts of me to be shown to someone is can be extremely hard to do
Mm-hmm.
and is really influential in making sure that that turns into the relationship I want it to be or it feels healthy.
Yes, I love that. Now, what do you think about sort of if we swing the pendulum the other way? When do you think it goes too far in the other direction and we're sort of suppressing emotion, or we're, going to that emotionless space?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're all human, so it's not that the emotions aren't there. Like they're there
Mm,
somewhere. And whether you're choosing to keep them bottled up, like I feel like a lot of times we see people who I'm not feeling, I'm not feeling, I'm not feeling, and then something happens that maybe is so unrelated to all of the emotions that have been under the surface. And then they all come flowing out of them in a way that is extremely unregulated and unhelpful, right? Like
mm,
the emotions are there somewhere, kind of like how Elspeth was there somewhere, right?
mhm,
And like, so I think it can be a protective factor for sure that people have learned that it maybe doesn't feel safe to have these emotions in certain settings. And sometimes the skill that they've developed for safety starts to interfere in settings where maybe it would be safe or it would be okay to share those parts. So I think it really does affect people's ability to connect and have relationships with others in a different way than what we were just talking about. Like
mm,
instead of feeling like too much, people are like, well, I feel like I don't really know them, or like they're not letting me get to know them, or there's just like a disconnect. And so I feel like it affects relationships on both sides of the spectrum, but in different
mm,
ways. And I also feel like those emotions, like it's not a fantasy magic world where we can truly just turn them off and not have them. So what feels unsafe about those emotions, or maybe I just haven't learned how to feel that feeling or how to name it or how to express it, and so I do all these other like maladaptive ways of expressing,
mm.
and that can be really harmful to yourself and to how you're perceived by others.
Yeah, I love that. It's that interaction between what is my internal world like? How am I experiencing my internal self? And also, how does it impact my relationships? If I'm never giving any vulnerability, if I'm never offering any emotional authenticity, that can be a stopper to authentic relationships just as much as going 0 to 60 and trying to overshare or over kind of spill emotions or thoughts out before the relationship is ready to handle it. So, what do you recommend that people consider, or what do you encourage people to consider when they are navigating this pendulum swing, and when they're navigating their emotional worlds?
Yeah, I mean, go to therapy. Um, and
Number, I mean, all the time, every one of these, go to therapy, one.
yep. Yes. But I also think like being able to identify like where those natural supports are, like when I am feeling emotional, like who are the people that have responded in ways that have felt helpful, who or
Mm,
what are the outlets that I have to be able to express emotions? Am I someone who turns to like music and creativity and that allows me to be in touch with my emotions in a healthier way instead of calling someone and like cussing them out? Do I need to like have a way to cope with that feeling? So knowing and getting a better understanding of what you need in these emotional moments, or what you need when you feel like you're not connecting with your feelings, like what helps bring that out of you. Maybe it's the people that support you, or maybe it is like hobbies, interests that you have. But I feel like with all themes in therapy, right? Like there is a level of self exploration that has to happen. And that is where the therapy setting can be really helpful, because there might be reasons why I can't have those conversations with other people, or I just don't feel ready to do that. And trying to do it in isolation alone, if it's something that's new, can be really difficult. And so having that unbiased opinion where I can come in and tell you all of these things, and you're not going to really have any like weight in the game with that. And you can just like support me in how I want to go about that journey. It's a really unique experience in therapy that I think people don't get until they try it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I even think about the fact that therapy can be a great space for testing out social skills, right? Like, let's say you don't really know what's an overshare or an undershare. What's a good medium there? We can try it out together. We could test it out. So let's role play a conversation. Let's talk about the kind of things that you want to talk about in conversations, and just get a sense for what feels comfortable. So the next item that I have here on our list for themes is around co-regulating, which I mentioned, and somatics and emotion. And this comes out of what happened on page 307 when she's released from the maiden card, and Elm has been waiting outside her door, and she opens the door and they lay in bed together. And it says she pulled him until they were pressed together. For a long while they did nothing but breathe, so close to one another, their inhales and exhales matched, a slow, steady rhythm. And I thought, as soon as I read this, I was like, oh, they're co-regulating. That's exactly what they're doing here, in my opinion. And for those who don't know, co-regulating is when you use one person's emotional or nervous system to influence another's. And this can happen unconsciously. So I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but when someone in your presence yawns and you feel the impulse to yawn, that is a co-regulating of nervous systems. We're both kind of feeling this pull to yawn. It also can be done intentionally, like when a child or is having a tough time with emotional dysregulation or is really activated. You see a parent hold a child to their chest and regulate heartbeats and have the child listen to the parent's heartbeat, or take deep breaths, both the parent and the child taking deep breaths together. That's an example of ways that we can use co-regulating to help us calm our nervous systems. So I'm curious for you, Becky, how do you see co-regulating come up in counseling spaces, if you do? And how can people use co-regulating or those relational bonds to moderate their nervous systems?
I think it needs to, maybe not that it needs to happen more, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
I also think because people maybe don't have a great awareness or understanding of how helpful that can be, or how you already are naturally doing that in your lives, being able to name it for what it is and seek it out, instead of like, oh, that hug felt really good, instead, it just happened, instead of
Mm-hmm.
being like, no, I like need that right now, and I know how to ask for it, whether it be with a partner or a family member. I think those types of things are really important to understand how it affects you and to be able to seek that out. I also think in the counseling space, like a counseling skill that people might see come up is where we're kind of like matching the person in the room. There's that mirroring that happens. So if my client is sitting there and is talking in a really quiet voice and, seems to be in a very calm state, for me to come in and be like, okay, so what else do you want to talk about this? Right? Like that is so jarring and unhelpful. And so
Mm-hmm.
there is this piece of we're co-regulating. I'm kind of matching your energy. I'm meeting you where you're at and matching your energy levels so that like it does feel cohesive and succinct when we're processing whatever's happening in the room together. And sometimes it happens unintentionally, but sometimes it is very intentional where like my client is holding very still and has not moved for a really long time. And I'm trying also to hold very still and not move, but I can feel that becoming harder as time goes on. But also for me to be fidgeting and, you know, be distracted, it's going to interfere with the process that's happening in the room. And so it is something on the counselor's perspective to be very aware of and what that client might need in that moment, but also for the client to be able to name like, this feels good, this feels helpful. Are there people that I can like ask that of?
I like that you bring up the counselor client relationship as a proxy for exploring like body awareness in the room with other people. We as counselors are trained to track like nonverbals in the face and body language and all of that. And I think it's really powerful when, even as a counselor, like if I have a client who's really activated, sometimes I will just take a deep breath and let my like shoulders drop. And you can watch people do the same. Like it's almost like an unprompted, like I'm not telling them take a deep breath, but they're just watching me take a deep breath. And so they take a deep breath and we're like, together we like do that big inhale and exhale. And so much of that has to do with activating parts of our nervous system that help us to be regulated, to stay in a curious, non-defensive mindset. And so if we're able to cast that out into conversational spaces, if you leave a conversation feeling really keyed up, there might be something somatically going on. Like, was the person fidgeting? Was the person loud or in your face? Or even if they were excited, like, what were they? What was the energy of the conversation? And if you can't track it, why in words it leaves you feeling a certain way, tracking it in the somatics, in the body sort of awareness in the spaces that we have, and recognizing if you're really activated, trying to seek out a person who can help you regulate. Or sometimes it's about getting away from people too. Like, I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but sometimes you're on a night out or something, and it's a lot of noise, it's a lot of people, a lot's going on. And sometimes I'm like, okay, my body has reached its limit on the amount of noise and people I'm bumping into right now. Let me step outside, take a couple of deep breaths, let my body regulate, and then I can go back in. And I can't tell you how many times clients or even friends have been like, do you just need to like step outside for a second? Or do we need to just like go do something different with our bodies for a minute and then come back? And it totally shifts the energy.
Yeah. And I think being able to have people in your circle that are able to do those things is so helpful. And if you don't have those people, it shows when, like, why am I leaving this feeling like I'm vibrating, right? And it's because I wasn't aware of it. The people around me weren't aware of it. And sometimes it takes a really long time to come down from those moments. So being able to access co regulation and know, like, what feels good for you. And again, maybe it is like, after a long day of work, like my partner and I just like touch feet on the couch, but like that level of connection feels good, right? It doesn't have to be this deep, like we're giving each other massages and taking all of these like mindful breaths, right? Like sometimes it doesn't work that way, but yeah, finding something that works for you.
I love that. So we have one more theme for this evening, and this is centered around Elm's trajectory. And so many times when I saw Elm across both books, but especially the second book, I just kept thinking about Elm's self-esteem, his understanding of his selfhood. And I think in the second book, we see a huge shift in Elm's view of himself. If we look, earlier on in the book, so I have a quote from 265 and 185. In 265 it says, he was a rotted out tree, and Ravyn the impenetrable, untouchable vines that helped the pieces of him together, that help helped piece him together. So I thought that was so vivid. Like Elm is seeing himself as this rotted out tree, like no good inside. And then on 185 it said, when he was younger, he fancied that's when women saw him. Not the prince, not Renelm, but Elm. Elm who wanted to be liked, to be seen. But he knew better now, and it humiliated him that he had ever thought that the women he'd bedded had seen the real him. They hadn't. And I highlight these two quotes because there's two dynamics going on here for me. Is like, one, if you actually saw the real me, like no one's actually seen the real me, and if they did, they would find a rotted out tree in there. And through the second half of the second book, he makes a really hard pivot in the view of himself. And I'm not going to say it, he like is like, I love everything about me by the end of the book, but he has enough self-esteem and self-awareness to see the role he could play as king, and he truly believes himself capable of it by the end. This full coming to fruition of his journey in self-esteem. And so when I saw this, I thought about how much self-esteem comes into the counseling room, talking about people not having self-esteem. They would like self-esteem. They'd like to work on it. So what do you see unfolding in the counseling space around self-esteem? And what kind of insights do you have for folks who are worried or struggling with self-esteem?
Something that I feel like I talk to clients a lot about. So working in a college setting, working with young adults, self-esteem is like status quo. Like that is a part of not the whole problem or conversation, but it almost always is a part of the conversations or a factor in the problem that someone is having, especially when a lot of the students tend to be athletes too, which creates a whole other host of problems with self-esteem because it's performance based and not just like personality based. And it's just like young adulthood is a really tough time. And I think social media access plays a huge part in that. They're in the ages of like really getting into like dating culture and all of those things. So self-esteem is really difficult. And like also their frontal lobes aren't fully developed yet. So it's really just a lot happening. And all of it makes them feel like they are not good enough. They are not attractive. They are not worthy. And it's a constant battle for them. I think a lot of the ways that we discuss it or the ways that it comes up is like a lot of conversations end with themes of, would you allow your friend to talk to themselves that way? If you had a friend who was saying these things about themselves, what would you be saying to them? What kind of advice would you be giving them? Why are you putting yourself down this way when you wouldn't put others down that way? Like, what makes this so different for you? Those types of themes to just help them recognize like they're their own worst critic most of the time. And also, depending on what they're talking about, like helping them recognize like when you observe other people in the world, are you as critical of them as you are assuming people are of you? And I think self-esteem is not always, but a lot of times based in a lot of just anxieties. And anxiety is just lies that our brain tells us and is a lot of assumptions. And so helping them point out like, where do we have the facts that align with this being true? And sometimes there is like real past experiences that they've had with bullying or whatever the case may be that has fueled the concerns with self-esteem. But there are plenty of times where they're performing well, their academics are good, but they still feel like I'm not good enough. And it's, well, we don't have the facts to support that. So why are we getting so stuck in this belief when all of the other facts we have show us something different? Maybe we're not the best student in our class, but we're also far from failing out, right? And so I think that oftentimes is very true of what we're saying to ourselves. We are our own worst critic. We are so hard on ourselves. We would never talk that way or feel that way about another person. And most of the time, there's not a lot of evidence to support that the things we're thinking and feeling are actually true.
I like that one, the looking for evidence. That's a big one. As a girly who has generalized anxiety disorder, that for me has always played a big part, even on the client side of things, as well as the clinician side, like highlighting the evidence. Um, I also like the idea of being able to track our thoughts and emotions without necessarily following them. So, like, there's in acceptance and commitment therapy. There's an exercise of like thanking your brain. Like your brain comes up with a thought and you're like, thank you so much, brain. That was super cool of your judgmental little thought that you just had. I really appreciate that. And you can make it snarky and you can make it funny, but really just being able to, once you have some good evidence that maybe your brain's not always telling you things that are accurate, being able to just be like, you know what, that's a thought that I'm having. And like, I'm not going to try to layer emotion on top of that. I'm just going to see it and let it exist, even if it's here for a little bit, kind of letting it float around. And then the other thing that comes up with clients for me a lot is looking at where those harsh messages are coming from. Because sometimes it's very societally driven. And if we know anything about society and social media, is that there is a very, very small margin by which you are sort of acceptable in the eyes of society. And if you have any variation on any of that, those messages start to become, prisons, that you're trying to live by some standard that is not attainable by really anybody. But I would say most definitely not most people. So recognizing like, where am I getting this message that in this way I'm not good enough, and like, how can I interrogate if it's coming from a societal place, or maybe it's coming from my family, and do I want to follow that messaging? I think young adulthood and emerging adulthood is a great time to question, like, do I want to absorb the values that I grew up with? What do I want to carry with me, and what do I want to leave behind?
And I love being able to point out, like, kind of like the zoom out method of, in our society, the society that we participate in, maybe these are the messages we're receiving, or in the culture that you have yourself or within your family, maybe this is the messages that you're being told. If we take it outside of our bubble, are those same messages being given, or do people feel differently about those things? Because there are so many times where it's easy to find an example of a large group of people who feel either the complete opposite or not nearly as strongly about you to what you're assuming is wrong or bad or not good enough. And so being able to have like very concrete examples of somewhere else that this is normal and accepted and beautiful and, put on a pedestal, when you're over here beating yourself up over it, it just gives that, like, it's not just me, like the world is much bigger than that, and maybe it's not that bad.
Yeah. And this is all work that can happen in counseling that I think is so unique to like, when you're having conversations with your friends. Like, this kind of work only goes so far within friendships. So being able to use the counseling space to do this exploration, I think it's what makes the work exciting and worth doing. So, yeah, those were our themes. Were there any other themes that you wanted to highlight? Anything that stuck out to you before we close out our
I
therapy
could
deep dive?
talk about this book for days on end, it
Uh-huh.
feels. So for the sake of everyone really enjoying their time with us, I will not drag it out any further.
Yes, yes. Like 3 days later, we're like, theme number 75. Yes. So those are going to wrap up our therapy mind deep dive commentary. And now all that's left is our final remarks and our social media shout out. First and foremost, as we are clinicians, it's important to highlight that if any of today's topics were triggering, upsetting, or in any way impactful, please make sure to seek out individualized mental health treatment as needed. And remember that this is a podcast. It is just for fun, and it's based on our own opinions and experiences. It should not be used for diagnosing, assessing, or treating mental health conditions. Our next episode, out on December 17th, is going to cover Quicksilver by Callie Hart. And I'm so excited because, Becky, this is your first time reading Quicksilver.
It
and
is.
I think what we should do is, before we record, like when we record Quicksilver, I think we shouldn't read Brimstone yet, so that both you and I can walk in with some theories for our Brimstone episode. So we'll get to do a little future thoughts and theories moment. I'm very excited about this.
Me too.
Yes. So December 17th, Quicksilver by Callie Hart, and then December 31st will be the Brimstone episode. If you'd like to support us or interact with us, please make sure to subscribe and rate our podcast on Apple Podcast app, Spotify, or YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram at Fae and Fables Pod, or email us at faeandfablespod@gmail.com. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.